Coney Island street gang, the Warriors, travel up to the Bronx for a meeting of minds headed up by the enigmatic Cyrus of the Gramercy Riffs. The Warriors get framed for Cyrus's murder and have to bop their way back home as rival gangs line up to exact vengeance. A low budget and a cast of nobodies didn't stop the Warriors hitting #1 at the box office before controversy struck. Since its release, it's become hugely influential in popular culture and is now a bona fide cult classic. My name is Luke, and the couple of desperate dudes with me are Westy.
We're going like everybody else. 9 guys, no weapons.
And Matt.
I'm sick of waiting for trains.
ATRM's heavy muscle are headed up to the Bronx. Can you dig it? Hi everyone, welcome to All the Right Movies, the one and only podcast on classic and hit films full of magic. Whole lot of magic.
Oh yeah.
We're coming out to play this week as we tell you the insane behind the scenes story of Walter Hill's The Warriors. A long time coming, got a time in the limelight. I'm surprised that it has, but I'm excited.
Of course you are.
You're not the only one who's surprised.
And you are the only one who's excited.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into all of that.
Yeah, we'll hold it back for a bit. Yeah.
It's too good to pass up, even if it's not true.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into all of it, it's time to tell you about the exclusive movie content you can get by becoming a patron of All the Right Movies.
Yeah.
What you're listening to now is our classic podcast, and only the most 20 recent episodes are available on general release. The rest are in our podcast archive, available only to our patrons. This is episode 101 of the podcast.
Ooh.
So, I guess the only question is, can you count, suckers?
Very nice.
Because if you can, you'll have worked out that there are 81 podcasts in our archive.
Yep. More than the police around here.
And added to that, there are 61 podcasts that we've created exclusively for our patrons. And that increases every month with new episodes of our patron-only podcast, Double Feature.
Yeah.
You're seriously missing out if you don't listen to that.
Yes, you are.
Definitely.
And from September, we're starting a brand new podcast format as well, the Watch List, where we'll be talking about movies that we've been watching recently. It's kind of like a review show, and that's monthly as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Well worth checking out.
Yeah.
So hundreds of hours of movie podcasts, and if you think it'll be too expensive, well then that's crap, brothers.
Oh, God. It's just getting them all out the way, I hope so. So good. So good.
There are loads of other benefits as well, so if you can dig it, you can sign up on patreon.com/alltherightmovies. Alternatively, for the classic podcast archive alone, those 81 episodes and counting, you can also subscribe on Apple Podcasts. For those, just click the subscribe button.
Definitely. We're everywhere. There's nowhere
We are everywhere, and we'd be very grateful if you could support us. It really does help bring these podcasts to you every month.
Yes, it really does. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Okay, so that's out of the way. Back to the show.
Yeah.
It'll come as no surprise to most. This one was my choice, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So why do I want to talk about this film? I never watched it as a kid. I was aware of it because of the come out to play thing. My brother used to do an impression of it, and he mimicked the bottles on his fingers with the weird voice and everything. But because I had no context, I thought he was doing a Freddy Krueger impression with the fingers
I
thing.
can see that, yeah.
I mean, I've mentioned on many occasions how much Elm Street terrifies me, so I avoided The Warriors like the plague.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I kept on going back to Elm Street, all the sequels and all the shit.
There you go. Yeah.
But no Warriors. So I didn't watch this until maybe 10 years ago, and I was instantly captivated. Set in New York, of course, so it's a big take.
Yeah.
But the kind of urban wasteland thing appealed to me. The immediacy of that opening scene grabbed me by the balls and didn't let go. It's got such a strong identity, and I love the world that Walter Hill's created. It's by no means perfect. And we're bound to have some fun with that over the course of the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Matt, we've talked about this before, but I'm particularly interested in what Westy makes of this whole thing. So, with that in mind, Westy, The Warriors, where you're at with this film.
I mean, 10 years ago for you, I thought this was like baked into your childhood.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Nope. I was a fully formed adult and I took this to me heart.
That's even worse.
Yeah, I'm even more confused.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, this one's new to me in the fact that I remember kind of seeing it, but I just remember it being on, and I've never actually seen it all the way through. I never sat and watched it.
What a treat, Westy.
And let it absorb the way that it has over the last few weeks, let's be honest. I mean, I wish I'd have seen this younger. I wish I'd have seen it younger, because there's so much I see in this that it's influenced other things. I did absolutely adore the soundtrack. I love the pace. There's a really great pace, there's a really great tone, and there's a really great energy to the film. And I can see why it's so beloved by people, because when you tap into that energy, it's really hard to forget, and it kind of stays with you. And it really is an uplifting film in that respect, where it has got this kind of electricity to it and this vibrancy to it. So I do get why people love it. I wish I'd loved it a little bit more, but then again, I could have hated it a lot more. So it's not to say that I completely disliked it. I really did enjoy it, but we have got a lot of things to talk about. Let's just leave it there.
Yes, we have a lot of things to unpack.
Yeah.
And Matt, have you got more things to add to that?
Well, I mean, it's the Warriors, isn't it?
It is the Warriors, Matt. No doubt about that.
I mean, you put the poll up, and I was just already expecting to talk about Jack Nicholson, one of his finest performances. And no, sorry, I'm sat here talking about Michael Beck instead. So there's a turn of events.
Yeah.
Well, 2 world-class performances there, Matt.
Luke's put the poll up and turned you into a popsicle. That's what he's done.
Yeah, exactly. No, there's not a big story on this one for me. Long-term patrons will know we did cover it a while back.
Yes.
It wasn't a film I was familiar with back then, and I'll repeat what I said, which is when I watched it, back then I was surprised because in my head I always had this pegged as like a post-apocalyptic drama set after a nuclear holocaust or something. I had no idea it was set in a contemporary world, so there were things I liked about it, there were things I didn't understand about it, and I think giving it the classic treatment means we can really get into those, which will be quite funny. And I'm just interested to see how much of this you can justify with a straight face, Luke, because this is an odd film. It's an odd film.
Yeah.
Granted, it's odd. It's odd. It's got its own unique style. I'm sure we'll get into all of that.
Oh, we definitely will.
The Warriors was co-written by David Shaber and Walter Hill, directed by Hill and produced by Lawrence Gordon for Lawrence Gordon's Productions, and distributed by Paramount Pictures into theaters on February the 9th, 1979. Shot on location at night in New York City, it stars Michael Beck as Swan, Oscar-worthy, obviously. Also Deborah Van Valkenburg as Mercy, David Patrick Kelly as Luther, James Remar as Ajax, and many, many others. Not a bad performance between them.
Just a collective one.
Yeah.
Okay, gang, let's bop our way up to the Buggy Down Bronx for a conclave that's going to be a real big item.
Maybe we'll get to waste a few heads along the way.
I wouldn't mind laying a little something down on the way back.
You got a one-track brain, you know that?
The beginning.
A blistering opening to the Warriors. Our boys have their colours on as they take the long ride up to Van Cortlandt Park. And Matt, you're going to take the reins.
I am. Do you know what? Great start of this film. Great opening credits.
Yes.
The score starts off quite eerie, but it just builds and builds in intensity till it becomes this massive pounding rush of adrenaline. Love that POV shot where you're rushing through the tunnel like a train. It's visually so arresting and it grabs you immediately. The editing, that's incredible. The way it cuts between all the various gangs on the move, the instructions being given out by Cleon, the way it takes you back and forth, gets all the exposition, which is quite boring, out of the way. That is so much more interesting than you would think is possible. So the editing, camera work, score, all top notch here. And it is when we get our first sight of the other gangs as well. So you got the boppers, who are those natty dresses, magnificent purple waistcoats,
Fantastic.
little feathers in their caps. But, and you knew there was a but coming.
I know what's coming.
You have the high hats.
The high hats.
Who is thinking of forming a gang and deciding on a unique identity? Who, in their right mind, puts their hand up and goes, have we thought about being mimes? I bet no one's taken that idea. There's a reason no one's taken that idea.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I've said it before, it reminds Billy Crystal and Spinal Tap. Every time I see them walk through there, it's a similar kind of vibe.
Yeah. I mean, how these guys are supposed to strike fear into anyone else, I don't know, like, watch out, they might pretend to lock you in a phone box, and that's about it.
A phone box of emotion. Milk was a bad choice.
So yeah, these credits are fantastic because it completely tells you what the rest of the film is going to be. Looks great, killer soundtrack. The content, however,
Oh wow, it's a bad. I mean, is this the best it's going to get, Matt? Don't let me down here.
No, it's not peaked too early. It's not peaked too early
It
yet.
doesn't peak to it. Thank God.
Yeah.
There's a shot of Cochise on the train. No dialogue, but I just love the way he's gesturing with such confidence. He's obviously telling Fox a tale about how he's picked up some chicks or busted somebody's head, and he's so animated. It's really, really great.
Yeah.
The real street gang in Coney Island were called the Homicides. No subtlety with that name. They weren't very happy with the Warriors cast wearing their gang colours on their turf, so the cast were limited to where they could go in costume in Coney for fear of their heads being busted open.
Right.
Quite childish, quite honestly.
Yeah. Gang warfare is quite childish.
Yeah.
Originally, the film opened during the day with a scene between Cleon and his girlfriend, who tells him that she doesn't want to go up to the Bronx, like the start of Grease. I don't want you to go, Cleon. But she's played by Pamela Poitier, Mr. Sidney Poitier's daughter.
Oh, wonderful.
The next scene sees the Warriors lined up on the boardwalk, with Cleon giving instructions to the Warriors before they set off.
And editor David Holden, he recommended that he'll cut the scene because the vast majority of the film is shot at night, so cutting from this scene to nighttime would be too jarring. And Hill agreed and went back to do the reshoots, and this ended up being the talking head footage, which is intercut between the train shots.
Oh, right, nice. It would be quite a soft opening, this, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just standing like at sunrise with his girlfriend saying, don't go.
Yeah.
But the reshoots were filmed one rainy night in Coney, and the shots are so tight in the actual film because they had to take cover from the rain in this tiny room.
Right.
And they only had a single overhead light for the shots.
Oh, wow.
So that's
I
why
love
it's
that.
right in your face.
Yeah.
So those open credits set up Cyrus as this mystical shaman. So when we finally get up to Van Cortlandt Park, I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to see who this guy is.
Yeah.
Has he been dropped from another planet to save us all? And then he shows up. And I think he does live up to expectation. I think he's got a good look.
Yeah.
I think he exudes such... I'm going to edit out your right there, Matt. Okay.
Oh, okay. Right. It's going to be like that, is it? Okay.
So you're not undermining things.
Okay. Well, keep my opinions to myself then.
This is like Luke's fucking Netflix special, isn't it?
This will be a very short episode, Luke. If you're going to cut out
it's a solo.
anything remotely negative.
Yeah, so I think he's got a good look. I think he exudes such an air of confidence and superiority.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just looking down on people immediately when he starts calling everybody suckers right from the word go. That's quite demeaning, isn't it?
He's got I think he's got an incredible presence, to be honest. It is quite laughable the way he looks in certain ways, but I mean, he's got a Christ-like figure, isn't it?
Yes, he has.
And it's very much kind of made that way. Mm-hmm. It really works, I think. I was kind of taken aback when he came on the screen, like, I'm going to have to listen to what he says.
I mean, the first question puts you on the back foot. Can you count? It's a really strange way to start things off.
It's really belittling as well.
It's really belittling. Yeah. Suckers, can you count it? Well, yeah, you dick.
And count one arsehole in here.
And his plan seems to be quite sound. You know, he's done his maths.
Yep.
And everybody seems to be kneeling at his altar and maintaining the truce. He says that the Moonrunners are right by the Van Cortlandt Rangers. Nobody's wasting nobody.
Yeah.
That is a miracle. So we know this is quite an historic summit that we're a part of here.
Yeah. To maintain authenticity, Walter Hill wanted to use real gang members in the film. They were used as extras in the conclave scene. So to keep things in check, Hill also infused this baying crowd with undercover cops, just in case the natives started getting restless. This is outrageous. But by and large, they behaved themselves. Jesus Christ, thankfully.
It's as dangerous as getting the gang from the Warriors together.
Yeah, exactly.
This actual scene, well, even more so because these are actual murderers.
Yeah, yeah.
But the neighbours didn't behave themselves, the surrounding apartments.
Right.
Shooting got disturbed by nearby residents who were being kept up in the early hours by the noise of the shoot.
Right.
And David Strait, the location manager, said, we actually paid them off so they would stop playing their stereos so loud and not screw up the soundtrack.
Right.
Because of all the commotion from various disruptive sources throughout the film, the entire dialogue in the film was looped in post-production. And I think that's as obvious as day.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
The sound levels don't match, do they?
No. It's as obvious as Jason and the Argonauts.
It is, yeah.
And when filming this conclave scene, many of the non-actors and extras left the set when they got bored, which diminished the numbers for the scene. And as a result, the filming schedule changed to get the crowd scenes shot earlier on in the night.
Yeah. When certain extras did leave the set, they often did it wearing their costumes because they preferred them to their own clothes.
Well, you would do.
Much to the chagrin of the costume department.
Yeah.
So to combat this, every extra was given a raffle ticket after they returned their costume at the end of the shoot, where one of them was in line to win a brand new colour TV, which, you know, is all very nice.
I mean, at the time, yeah.
Unfortunately, the lucky winner was mugged on the way home with his brand new TV was taken from him.
Really?
Yeah.
And Cyrus was supposed to be played by a gang member, but he disappeared the night before filming and nobody saw or heard from him ever again. And Roger Hill was then drafted in as a last-minute replacement.
Never. So that guy has been murdered then.
He's dead.
I would imagine.
Clearly.
Concrete boots.
Yeah, Roger Hill, who ended up playing Cyrus, said that he had played Hamlet 3 months prior to filming this scene, which was sufficient preparation.
Can thou dig it?
Wonderful. I really like Roger Hill's delivery in those lines, like, we've been fighting for 10 square feet of ground. I really like the way that he pronounces things, that his intonations.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got that iconic "can you dig it" line, which in the mix doesn't sound like him, the third one that he says.
Yeah.
It sounds like somebody else has dubbed it in.
Probably.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
And I mean, speaking about the whole Jesus symbolism and the Christ mythology, especially related to this guy, I mean, Cyrus is just such a powerful figure, I think, in all of this, and there's so much respect for him. But that platform they build for him, that is shoddy beyond compare. Isn't it? That's going to fucking go. And he just tumbles into it and it smashes open. But it's just, there's so many things here. The police arrive just silently and it just builds the tension. There's a fantastic whip pans that create these transitions between the crowd getting more and more riled up, which looks really, really good. And there's one of my favourite shots in the whole film is that just really close moving camera of just that gun being passed through the crowd. You don't know who it's going to. And then there's that really great reveal of Luther. And you just think it's just absolutely wonderful filmmaking because it just builds the tension and the sound ramps up. And then that gunshot goes off and I'm like, yes, this is directed by Walter Hill. Absolutely, 100%, because that gunshot is just reverbing into the night as he falls backwards like Christ through a shoddily made wooden floor. And I was like, right, I know where I am with this now. I can't wait for this to continue because I want to see more of this because this is exactly what I signed up for and this is exactly what I was expecting. So for me, this was a scene that really needs to hit home, and it really does. I think it's beautifully directed and it's beautifully shot.
Yeah, I think it sets up Luther well as well. He's got the brass balls to kill the one and only in front of 1,000 people.
Just that close-up of his face when the gun comes up. It's just like, you don't trust him immediately. And it's a great performance as well.
Craig Baxley was the stunt coordinator who would go on to direct Action Jackson, of all things.
Very nice.
And he wanted to bring in a stuntman from LA to do the stunt after Cyrus gets shot. But the studio wouldn't stretch the budget. And Baxley said there were only 2 black stuntmen in New York at the time, but they didn't want to do it.
I'm going to quote Baxley directly here for this next part of the story.
Okay.
So there was only 2 black stuntmen in New York. They didn't want to do it. So he said, I had to do it. I came out with afro sheen in my hair, black skin, and my blue eyes. I thought I was going to get killed.
Just let your soul glow.
After he fell down, he got mobbed and he thought he was in for it, but they picked him up and they were cheering.
Right.
Thankfully, he didn't get killed.
God, Jesus. Not another disappearance on my hands.
So when you're president of the biggest gang in the city, you don't have to take any shit. That is unless you get shot by a lunatic. Sad times for Cyrus.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So with Cyrus wasted, chaos ensues as our heroes flee the scene. Westy, you're picking up the action.
I think this is just a wonderful sequence as it just continues the madness. It shows the scale of the conclave, like we've said. It shows them cranes working. It shows everything and how the panic. Everybody's running in different directions. It's really great timing of the police reveal because Fox has seen what's going on. Luther's got the gun on him. Is he going to go? Lights come on. Classic. Love it. Seen it a million times since. But I think, again, if I'd watched this as a kid, I'd be like, wow, I didn't expect that. That was incredible. How did that happen?
Not as an adult?
No,
not like me then.
Because I would have expected that a million miles away. I've seen it too many times. Where you're like, I've seen them stay. The police are there, so here we go. Right, the lights are going to come on. I did expect more from Fox, but we'll get into that later because he says absolutely fuck all about anything. But we'll get into that. I'm sure there's reasons. Yeah. But it's just this bit that gets me is just how cool Cleon is. And the way that he goes up and he tries to chill out, he tries to just get involved and standing over Cyrus. And then Luther's like, that's him, the Warriors did it.
The Warriors!
Yeah, and then the riffs come on to Cleon, right? And he's like Shaft. He's just fucking...
He's amazing.
He's got some kung fu moves, brilliant. And then all the riffs do is just get on top of him and just elbow drop him to death. Loads of elbows.
Loads of static elbows.
It's like watching the Rockers from like WWF. Just like loads of like massive massive elbows in there until he's dead. It really adds to this whole madness of the scene. And I think it's great the way Fox has just stood there. And I still love that guy. He likes windows. So I still love that guy.
Of course.
And I still love the whole pointing the finger. And you just think, oh, shit, out of everybody, it's the people that we're with that we like who are in the shit now, and we've got to stick with them through this. And it really adds to that tension. And it's really, really well done again.
Okay, I'm loving the positives, Westy.
Yeah. Get them out the fucking way.
Yeah, make the most of it. And in the ensuing chaos after the shooting of Cyrus, to maintain relative control, the extras were asked to move in circles within circles, so concentric rings, running in the opposite direction to each other. And to make it even more simple, extras were given the one direction, which was follow the guy in front.
Nice. Like a mosh pit.
Simple but effective.
Yeah.
But look out for it when you watch it next. It's clear to see.
It is.
But it does create an effective, controlled amount of confusion.
Yeah.
So after this bit, they fled the scene. You get the bit which I want to talk about, which is the hideout in the graveyard. And what this scene gets really right is the fact that they're all just sweating the bollocks off here. You can feel like the humidity in the air. You can see how much they're sweating. And I think one of the things the Warriors does get right, it is that visceral sense of like clammy summer nights. You can really feel that in the air. You know that heat where your underwear sweats and it crawls up there? Anyway, it's hot, okay?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's hot.
So, So, location itself, fantastic. Surrounded by the tombstones, the graves. So, there's a lot of foreshadowing going on, a lot of symbolism, which I really like. And it sets up the simplicity of the narrative going forward, and all of that is really nicely done. But it's also the scene where I started to get a bit concerned about going forward with this film, because if these are our main characters, the people we're supposed to identify with and root for, it already feels a bit lacking, because we'll get to the performances in a bit, but I'm already looking at Swan going, this guy's in charge.
Really? Seriously?
This is the guy everyone's backing. Really? Like, you don't get like any sense of leadership from it, and everyone's saying to Ajax, no, Swan's war chief. I'm on Ajax's side, to be honest. Like,
really?
Why? James Remar has something about him, I think. And
yes, he does.
Because you have these characters called Ajax and Swan, and they say, no, I want to be war chief. This is the first bit where I feel this should be set in the future. Like, the language doesn't feel right for the times, like these kind of terms and these kind of names. So it's an interesting scene because it starts to set up some of the problems I have with it as well.
I think it's quite interesting that they put the W on a gravestone, kind of signing their own death warrant. It's really interesting.
Yeah, great. Yeah, like you were saying, foreshadowing, the warriors in the cemetery, some of them won't make it home alive.
Yeah.
There's loads of that, like that. So the scene directly after this, Matt, where we meet Masai, and we get to understand the scale of the Gramercy Rift's operation. I love it. They've got a huge network and a professionally enough outfit that when Cyrus gets blown away, they've got a born leader waiting in the wings, ready to take over and exert his authority. And it's Masai, who's amazing, a formidable prospect.
Yeah,
I love him. Edward Sewer, who plays Masai, was incorrectly tagged in the end credits as an unnamed Gramercy Riff, while Dennis Gregory, an unnamed Gramercy Riff, was credited as Masai.
Oh, right.
Ouch.
Shame, because I think Sewer's got some unique, some could say bizarre delivery in his lines.
Yeah.
He's that incensed that Cyrus is being killed that he's talking with all of his neck muscles contracting.
Yeah.
It's quite something.
He's like talking with his teeth, isn't he?
And because we're introduced to this outfit in this scene, we get those glorious transitions throughout the film where Masai is getting regular updates from the guy with the great hair.
Yes.
I think, again, it shows how deep the network runs and it reinforces the world that we're in for me. I love it.
Definitely.
So, send the word. The Riffs, along with every other gang in the city, are after the Warriors. That's that real live bunch from Corny. And I do mean the Warriors.
The director.
Walter Hill's first outing on the podcast. We have talked about a couple of his films on our double feature show, though, so yet another reason to sign up to become a patron of ADRM.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
There are many of them.
How many more do you need?
There's loads. 10,000.
Come on.
So Hill's work as director on The Warriors. Westy, what do you like?
I mean, I like a lot of what Hill does. I think it's, again, I love a confident director. I've said that time and time again that it's becoming a cliche, but I think he's got a very distinct style that comes across in this. I think it does have a very comic book feel, which I think is what he was going for. I think the locations really, really work. And I think his location work here is what stands out for me, and how difficult this must have been to shoot and how authentic he makes it seem. I mean, even the fight scenes, they're a little bit laughable now, but I think in 79, you would kind of go, I could see myself in that fight and I would have a good go. It kind of, you could put yourself in that space.
Yeah.
I think you can really experience the location, you can experience what he's trying to put across. I think it's just the multiculturalism that he brings to each of the gangs, is that there's nobody's stereotype. There's nothing to do with race here. There's nothing to do with sexism. There's nothing to do with like, oh, there's sexism, but it is 79. But it's done in the way that it's a trap laid. Do you know what I mean? I think Hill knows that, and he's playing on stereotype in a really wonderful way and in a really refreshing way. And it's just the way that he uses the location to reinforce that stereotype and put you in that space. And there's nobody better than Walter Hill to put you in a space and make you feel like you are actually there. And I think he really, really accomplishes that in this film.
Yeah, incredible use of location.
Yeah.
And part of the reason for those amazing locations in the film, I was down a location manager, David Street. He was born and raised in New York and had previously driven a cab around the city.
He said, my job was to take production in the most dangerous parts of New York and see if we could survive.
Wow.
My instinct was to go dark and dangerous.
And he really did. No wonder they're not bothered about the performances. Everything's one take and out.
Yeah, get the fuck out
Get
of
the fuck out. Yeah, that's a real fire. Let's get the fuck out of here.
And with your wonderful comments, Westy, here comes our first question from an ATRM patron.
Oh, okay, great.
If you sign up on Patreon, you can ask us a question for the film we're talking about. Our first comes from Jamie Beckett.
Hello, Jamie.
Hello, Jamie.
Hi, Jamie. And Jamie says there is an incredible sense of place in The Warriors. Agreed.
Mm-hmm. Great.
What other classic films have a similar sense of place in other cities as this does in New York? Matt, over to you.
I've got 3.
Okay.
First one I'm going for is London in The Long Good Friday. I mean, that is practically a character in itself in that film.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
could not be set anywhere else. Second one, and I feel there might be a bit of a crossover here again, but I'm going for Venice and Don't Look Now, just because it's the complete
Incredible
contrast to how Venice is usually seen, the city of love, except it's crumbling into disrepair, decay, and horror, outright horror in that.
Yeah.
And then the last one for me is Tokyo in Lost in Translation.
Very nice.
Because that
lovely.
is so disorientating as it is for Charlotte, the character in that. It does feel like she stepped into an alien landscape almost.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
A few for me that really stood out. A couple when I was growing up that really made us want to visit the places. I think Dirty Harry is such a beautiful look at San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
And then So I Married an Axe Murderer is such a San Francisco film as well.
Oh, nice.
I think
Yeah,
it really
yeah,
highlights that. It's as silly as it is. For me, the definitive New York film is Taxi Driver. I think it always will be. I think it's just the way that shot is just so enigmatic and it just really plays a role.
Yeah, great.
Heat for downtown LA. I cannot see anything else comparing to that. One we've talked about very recently, if you want to sign up to Patreon, is Get Carter, which I think highlights Newcastle really, really well. And it still looks the same now. So if you want to see what Newcastle looks like,
Crap house.
it's not Crab House, it's Crab House. But one that's a real standout for me is Seven, which is not meant to be anywhere and kind of looks like everything, but was actually shot in California, shot in LA. But it has a real anonymity to it. And I think that's Fincher's genius, where you can make something be a place and have a presence, but not actually show where it is. So I think that's a really nice contrast to the other ones on the list.
I think a film that we've talked about on our double feature show recently, and we're getting Patreon plugs left, right, and centre here. But Training Day's LA locations are pretty spectacular for me.
Yes, yeah, brilliant.
They all give a sense of danger and unease, much like this film.
Yeah.
The film that I really love, but it's certainly not for the faint-hearted, is Miss 45, the Abel Ferrara film from 1981. It's a second feature after Driller Killer.
Right.
Okay.
That's also set in New York, where you can feel the filth and the grime under your own fingertips as Zoe Lund exacts beautiful revenge on the city. It's visually striking. Just like I said, watch with caution if you're interested.
Check that one out if you dare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't at me. Or maybe do. See what happens. What's happening to what you're saying about the location, Westy, I think that along with the few other elements, those give the Warriors such a unique visual identity, unlike any other. I can't think of another film really like this. I think it's uniquely the Warriors in most departments.
Right.
Just look at those costumes. So striking, so individual. I mean, they had to be able to differentiate the gangs. I mean, you've got the mimes, of course.
Yeah.
You've got the Savage Huns. You've got the Electric Eliminators. They're amazing. They're all amazing. And Hill and his crew have put in so much attention to detail. The majority of the praise here needs to go to Bobby Mannix, who was the costume designer. Walter Hill's brief to her for the costumes was, "Don't think anything's too weird."
Brilliant. I'd love a brief like that. I never get
Explains
that.
a lot.
Yeah. But I think Hill is such a great director of visuals. Think of that conclave scene, which is huge with the aura of Cyrus and the crowd full of different identities. The fact that it's all shot at night, but it's brimming with colourful energy.
Yeah.
When I think of the Warriors, I see it in neon, not darkness. because it feels like full of life and vibrancy.
See lots of red, lots of yellows, lots of greens.
Hill isn't one of the great visualists, Ridley Scott or Kubrick or anything like that. And his films could be dismissed as pulpy crap by certain sections of people. Snobs, let's call it. Let's call it as it is.
Let's call it as it is. That's right, yeah.
But it's very cinematic and very appealing to me. I think the visuals alone in this film is enough to make you just sit up and pay attention.
Yeah, definitely.
And in Hill's mind, the film takes place in a dystopian future, which, yes, that's absolutely what I think as well. And at the beginning of the film, he wanted a legend that said sometime in the near future. That got nixed by Paramount because they felt it was too much like Star Wars. And Hill said, I thought the movie was close to being incomprehensible without that, because it always seemed to me to be a science fiction movie. I mean, the man said it right there.
In the near future or a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Too much like Star Wars. It's the opposite, mate. It's the absolute opposite.
The direct opposite.
Hill's original concept for the film was to divide the film into chapters and start each one with a splash panel like a comic book. He said, I don't think you can understand the movie without understanding my infatuation with the American comic book. But his plans were scuppered because the budget was low and the post-production deadline was really, really tight.
Yeah, so the white transitions that he used in the original cut of the film were kind of his replacement of the comic book aesthetic to denote that different scenes were happening at the same time.
So it's like a page turning then.
Yes, exactly, yeah. As well as the comic book aesthetic, Orson Welles was prepped and ready to do a short narration for the film, for the opening of the film.
Drunk as a skunk, I would imagine.
Now we're talking.
Of course. Wells would have done any old shit as long as it kept him in gin at that time.
Yeah, 79, definitely.
Obviously, Orson Welles would have cost. Paramount balked at that, and Hill didn't get his intro either.
Right.
But he did get to tinker with the film in 2005 and put his original ideas in the director's cut version of the film, and Hill himself provides the voiceover for the opening.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Matt, what are your thoughts on Hill as director here?
Really strange mixture, because on one hand, it's classic Walter Hill. On the other hand, it's very un-Walter Hill at the same time, because it's very visually striking. There is, I think, a strong John Carpenter look and feel to this, because the visuals are so bold. They're very clean. There's no scene in this that looks cluttered or looks like it hasn't been thought through the prism of how can this film be told in the most visual manner possible, to the point where it's one of those films I think this could be a silent film and you could still tell what's happening like 90% of the time. Because
it's very Precinct 13, isn't it?
Very Precinct 13.
It is. It is, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the visual clarity that Hill brings. There's no fat on it. It's really streamlined, really well paced, all classic Walter Hill. But on the other hand, I always think Walter Hill of bringing some grit to a film and being tonally consistent. He picks a tone, he sticks with it, and he nails it. This is jumbled, and it doesn't have the grit in what it is. It's really quite camp a lot of the time.
It is camp.
It's really
of course it is.
Like a lot of hunky young guys wandering the streets, stripped to the waist with leather waistcoats. And
yeah, it is.
There's nothing wrong with the film being camp, don't get me wrong, but I'm just not sure Walter Hill wants this to be camp or as camp as it gets. So yeah, I think just on one hand, it's very Walter Hill, and on the other, I'm just not sure what's going on, and he just seems to have lost control of it a bit.
Yeah, I can see where you come with that, and I can understand why people would be put off by the kind of tone which undermines the reputation that it has, because it's got a bit of a reputation, a badass reputation.
It does, yeah.
The Warriors was based on the 1965 novel of the same name by Sol Urich. More on that later. Producer Lawrence Gordon came across the book by chance at a bookstore. He read the back and was bought in immediately. And around the same time, director Otto Preminger, who directed Anatomy of a Murder, among other things, was also taken by the novel and wanted to do a movie adaptation, which was entirely faithful to the book.
Right.
The day before signing the contract, Lawrence Gordon came in with a better offer to usurp Preminger.
Wow.
Did they just read the back? Did any of them
just
read the
back?
book?
Loved it. Yes, I'll buy that.
That sounds good.
All right.
And Gordon then hired David Shaber to adapt it into a screenplay. Shaber had worked on TV and Broadway, and coincidentally, his only movie credit at that time was adapting the story for the stage musical Such Good Friends for the big screen, and that film itself was directed by Otto Preminger.
Small world.
Right, there you go.
Can you believe it?
Having worked with Walter Hill on his first two films, which is Hard Times and The Driver, Gordon sent him a copy of the screenplay and the book. Hill liked what he read, but didn't think any studios would be interested, so his and Gordon's attention moved to a Western movie called Last Gun, written by Hill and Roger Spottiswoode. Amazing.
Wow.
Financing fell through on that, so they went back to the Warriors. Gordon persuaded Paramount to stump up the cash, and they felt there was a youthful market they could tap into with this film that could really get the teeth into it. I would have loved to have seen that Western, though.
Definitely.
The Last Gun.
Beautiful.
Hill said we got the green light in April or May 78, and we were in theatres in February 79, so it was an accelerated process.
Yeah, that's despite Hill shooting around 150,000 feet of film, the equivalent of about 30 hours. He didn't make the job easy for his editing team. One of them, David Holden, affectionately called Hill the Blanket because he covered everything.
Amazing.
I love that.
Yeah, that name hasn't caught on. We need to revive that.
Yeah, the Blanket. It just sounds
nice.
Sounds comfy. Yeah. Who you on set with? The Blanket. Should be fine.
Oh, wonderful. The film went over budget and over schedule as a result of the permanent night shoot. Hill said the movie was shot in the summer of 78 and we were all LA guys, so we didn't understand how short the nights were in New York City in the summer.
Right.
And in the contracts at the time, the crew's lunches were an hour and it took long to reassemble after that. So we were basically shooting a workday that amounted to half a day in Hollywood.
An hour lunch. Wow, it's amazing.
An hour lunch at 3 a.m. So a lot went on during production, which meant it went over budget and over schedule, and kind of explains the ramshackle nature of it. That's my excuse. I'm papering over the cracks here.
Yeah.
First up is the whole Thomas G. Waits debacle. Waits played Fox in The Warriors.
Yeah.
The structure of the narrative was changed mid-shoot, largely because there was a spat between Hill and Waits, which ended in Waits being fired halfway through filming. A huge decision which could have completely derailed production and has done in the past many times on many projects.
Yeah, there are different reports as to why Thomas Waits was given the boot. Allegedly, he repeatedly left the set to get high, and when he returned, he was very disruptive. In the shooting script, Fox was the hero of the piece, and I can kind of see this is why he doesn't say anything through the film. It kind of makes sense.
Was he pissed off?
Yeah, so Fox was the hero of the piece and ended up with Mercy at the end. This all changed mid-shoot when Hill thought that Beck and Van Valkenburg had great on-screen chemistry. I don't know. It seems like he's just thrown under that train for no reason whatsoever.
I think that's an excuse.
Yeah,
That's been done in retrospect.
Absolutely an excuse. There's no chemistry there, like.
They don't at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, and the way the story was rewritten didn't appeal to Waits, who wasn't a fan of the violence. He said, "We started shooting and we were labouring over these scenes with all this violence, and I was getting really fucking frustrated because I could see this was almost obscene with violence. It wasn't what I signed up for. I signed up to be a part of the love story in difficult circumstances that changes these people."
What a load of shit. How aggressive is that? It's not what I fucking want to do. I want to be the fucking love story. I don't want to be the fucking gang film with violence. Of course you do, man.
It's called The Warriors. It's about gangs. That's a lie as well.
Yeah.
Hill apparently told Craig Baxter, the stunt coordinator, "You have to come up with a way to kill this guy. I don't give a shit how you kill him. Just kill him."
Yeah.
And when it happened, Waits said, "It was like someone cut my soul out and left a shell." Editor David Holden said that Tom Waits had a bad attitude, which threatened the harmony of the Warriors cast, so the decision was made to drop him. They made up the scene where Fox gets thrown onto the tracks and killed. It's not even Waits in that scene, it was his stunt double, and they filmed and cut around his double. And I don't really think that it sticks out that it isn't Thomas Waits, if you didn't know.
If you didn't know, no. I mean, he is shot from the back, isn't he?
Yes, he's shot from the back.
Time and you don't really see him, but yeah.
But he has got about an extra 20 pounds on him or something like that.
Yeah, and it's in slow-mo. I thought he would have done it a little bit quicker, just so it's not as obvious, but yeah.
It's just the fact it doesn't get remarked on. Like no one mentions what happened to Fox, who seems quite important.
No remorse,
Exactly.
no sadness, no tears.
Yeah. Now, Hill has expressed a lot of regret at the whole situation and that he accepted some of the blame lay on his doorstep, which is fair enough. He said, "I'm not proud of this at all. I think had I been a better director, I might have gotten through to him better, but he was, but we felt beginning to be like a disruptive force. So what was he supposed to do? You know what I mean?"
Yeah, you can tell that. Waits has apologetically reflected on his involvement of the incident as well. He said, "It was entirely my responsibility. I was sort of difficult at the time, probably gave the director a little more trouble than I was worth. Walter let me go, which I don't blame him for. I had a tendency to be argumentative unnecessarily."
Yeah, I think he was happier in the thing anyway.
Yeah. Michael Beck said the cast were taken aback by this decision to get rid of Waits. They were aware there was a conflict of some sort going on, but not to the extent that was eventually revealed. And it was explained to him that it made more sense for the character of Swan to end up with Mercy, considering their burgeoning alleged chemistry.
Chemistry. Now, despite how upset Waits was at the decision, he was contractually obliged to loop dialogue. So once filming had wrapped, he had to do just that. Come in and loop his dialogue. Devastating.
What a bastard. A pain in the arse, that, yeah.
Yeah. But he did ask for his name to be removed from the credits.
Yeah.
But, you know, like you said, Westy, he went on to star in The Thing a few years after this. We love him in that. He's in Justice for All as well. He's had a decent career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We mentioned in the conclave scene there was some disruption, but trouble did follow production around as they moved from location to location. And I think it's important to give some context here about the state of the city of New York in the late 70s. The son of Sam had been terrorizing the streets less than 12 months before the film was shot.
Yeah.
The city was in severe economic decline. Gangs did own the streets at night. There were 1,733 murders in 1979, the seventh most on any year on record.
Christ.
Compare that to 386 last year, 2023.
Wow. Okay.
And police presence was limited because budgetary cuts, so much so that people were urged not to go out at night.
Right.
So, bad situation. Despite this, Hill tried to befriend the New York street gangs as much as he possibly could. It did all go off without any incident mostly. One scene had to move location because the surrounding abandoned buildings were swarmed by gang members jeering and shouting from broken windows because the gangs hadn't been paid to shoot on their turf.
And often gang members would come up to the actors and try to start some shit. They got taken care of by security before they got to the cast. But Terry Mykos, who plays Vermin, said, they would say, "You think you're tough?" And we'd just say, "No, we're just actors."
But Vermin thinks he's tough in this. He's just like...
He thinks he's an actor as well.
There were instances where gangs threw bricks at the cast and crew, and most worryingly, a scene that was set to be shot in Avenue A in Alphabet City, that's the Lower East Side, it had to be moved locations because there was a double homicide around the block that night.
Bloody hell.
Okay.
Yeah, scary stuff.
A lot of gangs were engaged by the production, but not all gangs in New York were. Many of those that weren't part of the shoot sent death threats to crew members, and on one occasion, thousands of dollars of equipment was damaged by a gang when production went to lunch. Well, that's the hour for you. Just do half an hour like we do.
Yeah.
You'll be absolutely fine. So after the destruction, a gang called the Mongrels were hired for £500 a day to protect the gear.
Unbelievable. Producer Frank Marshall said, in those days it was really about fists and being macho. I think the worst thing that could have happened was somebody would have pulled a knife. It was exciting and dangerous. You could never make this movie today. For more than one reason, Frank.
Yes, exactly. For more than not, that's not it.
Yeah.
So considering the multiple problems on set and resistance from Paramount, it's a wonder Hill came out with anything even semi-coherent.
Yeah.
Detractors of the film may say that he didn't, but you can't deny that it has a unique style and identity all of its own, and the majority of that is because of Walter Hill.
Yeah.
The cast.
A cast of nobodies in The Warriors, and we're unlikely to be talking about any of them at length ever again.
No.
So let's make it count. A huge casting call was completed in New York. James Remar, who plays Ajax, said, "I think they auditioned every actor in the city. Due to the low budget, Hill was looking for unknowns only, and only New York actors were cast to give the film authenticity. And the first one is Michael Beck, a.k.a. Stiff Steve, who plays Swan, the hero of the piece."
Yeah.
Westy?
Michael Beck is in great nick, and his hair hasn't changed since The Warriors came out. If you look at him now, he looks like John Bon Jovi now.
He
looks
does?
exactly
Yes,
the
he
same.
does.
His hair's the same in case people don't recognise him. That's how successful his career was after The Warriors. He did some terrible films, some of which I'm ashamed to say I've seen. I mean, is he one of the best in the film? But then that's not really saying much. He's probably got the most screen time, which makes you feel like he's one of the best in the film. But that doesn't really come across. And I just wish with my whole heart that Cleon had survived and got us through this instead.
Totally. And
with this guy as number 2, he would have been great. That imagine that, you know, facing off against the Orphans with Cleon and this guy as like number 2. He would have been, he's a perfect strong silent type. Mm-hmm. And it feels like he's just being pushed to the front and doesn't quite know how to, because he just says to everyone, "Yeah, keep talking. Yeah, what we're going to do." And then he just reacts. I mean, I know it's not about you. It's not about what you say. It's about what you do. And that's what Swan is. He's just, he's reactive.
Strong silent type.
Exactly. And it's not about, he's got no opinion. He's just got action.
No.
Yeah.
And his actions always work and they're always good. And he makes the right decision. And he's looking out for everybody when he needs to look out for everybody. And he just wants to get them home. And he's got morals. And I think Beck plays that really well. I think he plays it with like a real confidence of self and like a real confidence of the character and knows that he does not really have to say much. But at the same time, there's no real subtlety to the character. There's no
Nope.
subtlety to the performance. He's like,
Horrific.
there's just one of that. You know, with that, if you get a toy where it just pivots at the waist and just it just smashes every other toy. It's got no intricacies. Like it doesn't bend at the elbow.
Yeah.
Remember them He-Man toys you got from the 80s?
yes.
And they
I
just
thought
twisted
He-Man toys,
and
yeah.
they just punch people in the face. Like you want to see, he's like, can your fingers move? No, your fingers are just fists. And that's all I am. And I've got this bobbed haircut and that's it. I think, honestly, it's the way that he looks. And he buys into the confidence of this character not having much intelligence and just being street smart. And being street smart means being reactionary. And that's all he is. And if that's all he needs to be, he does that really, really well. I would just like to see a little bit more from him.
That's fine if you are in an actual gang and you're not performing on the big screen to entertain people.
But that's the point, isn't it? The lines are blurred. he kind of believes that he is. I think that's the whole point.
I think we need to play down our expectations here because
Yes,
of
exactly.
the material. It's not Cuckoo's Nest, is it? It's not Chinatown.
No, you're not going to put De Niro in this
Regrettably.
role.
Well, on that, Westy,
Yeah.
I was going to save it till later,
Right.
but Tom McKittrick plays the role of cowboy.
Yes.
There's a wild suggestion floating around the internet that Robert De Niro was approached for the role, but he declined it.
Of cowboy.
You believe that? Yeah.
I can believe he declined it, yeah.
More believably, Tony Danza was in the frame to play a vermin, but declined so he could work on TV show Taxi.
Right, that
Now,
makes
if
sense.
Danza doesn't want to be in it,
Yeah.
there's no way that De Niro was even a realistic thought.
Not at all, no. So Walter Hill was the writer, producer on Alien, the original Alien. And when it came to casting Sigourney Weaver for that film, Hill screened a film that she'd appeared in called Madman from 1978. Michael Beck also starred in that film, which ultimately landed him the role of Swan in The Warriors. Must be some performance. I've never seen that. I need to check that out in that case.
The cast had to stay in shape for the shoot. Beck would wake up at 1 p.m. after his night shoot, go for lunch, then straight to the gym. Marcelino Sanchez, who plays Rembrandt, said, "Sometimes I wonder if this is a motion picture or a marathon."
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of running.
There's a lot of running. There's a lot of workouts.
Yeah.
A lot of sweat.
And after the success of The Warriors, Michael Beck's next film was opposite Olivia Newton-John in the much maligned Xanadu.
Ah, yes.
Xanadu. Xanadon't.
Xanadu, exactly. Well,
Fucking hell.
Beck said something nearly as good as that, Westy. What he did say was, The Warriors opened a lot of doors for me in film, which Xanadu then closed.
What a zinger.
Best thing that's ever come out of his mouth.
And as we're talking about the leader of our crew, it's time for our second Patreon question. This is a combination of a few questions we had. The initial one came from John Rapash. Hi, John.
Hello, John.
Hi, John.
John said, "You and the boys are forming a gang to take back the streets. What do you call yourselves? What type of getup is needed to look the part?"
Oof.
Liam Moore asked a similar question. He said, "If the ATRM were a gang in the movie, what would your look be? Costume, hair, weapons?"
Yeah.
Maxim Shearer, Ryan Shippo asked a similar question about gang name and gimmick.
Yeah.
Shout out to all of you fellas. Thanks for your questions.
Yes,
So we'll
thanks,
be doing a
guys.
combination of the questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Westy, over to you.
Well, I'm going to keep it movie themed, and I'm going to keep it my favourite movie themes.
Love it.
So I've got two different gangs. So join what you want. If you want to pick it
Two?
up, run with it. Just I've got two different ones.
Of course,
If you want to pick it up, run with it. If you want to send it right back, send it right back. The first one is the Space Hunters. All right. And we're
Send
just-
it right back.
Yeah.
That's I've thought you would. You're not invited. So it's just loads of cobbled together leather, loads of boots and that, and just looking like, bounty hunters from Space Hunter, basically Adventures in the Forbidden Zone. If you haven't seen that film, they would just look like Peter Strauss in that film and go around fucking people up.
Yeah.
And the second one is the Hungarian art house bastards, where we just dress as 1920s peasants, and where you go dress in black and white and just carry buckets of feces.
I don't think either sound appealing, to be honest, but I'll
Not
go
to
for
you.
the Space Hunters.
Okay, there you
If
go.
there's
You
still
see,
a
you sent
space.
that right back too quick, didn't you? There you go.
Now you're a Hungarian peasant who's laughing now.
I
Yeah.
see, exactly. The Hungarian art house bastards. It's with Bellatar's the leader. You know how long
Of
it would have taken
course.
us to get back to Coney Island? Fucking 5 days.
It would have been all in one shot, though, Westy.
Yeah, it would be one shot. You're absolutely right.
Okay, well, this is a tricky one for me, but I've used the 70s New York setting as inspiration.
Wow.
Obviously.
Not again.
Yeah. And I think what's missing from the roster of street gangs in this film is disco.
Yeah.
This is slap bang in the middle of the era. Of course, disco would be dead a year later, so we might have to rebrand. But for now, we are the Hot Pants.
I'm out.
No, you're not, Westy.
Oh, come on.
were wearing one-piece sequin jumpsuits, silk. Matt, you liking the sound of this already?
I'm disturbed more than anything.
Disturbed, okay, right? I think it's just the right level of camp to fit into the world of the Warriors. We've got big, luxurious hair. We'll travel on white horses like Bianca Jagger when she made an outrageous entrance to Studio 54.
Okay.
Right. We've got horses.
That's dramatic,
The
isn't
hot
it?
pants on horses. We don't really... I mean, I wouldn't be threatened by these guys.
I think we'd be more threatened by us than the hi-hats.
I don't know, like... At least they've got integrity. The hot pants is on white horses. Brave farts.
Wonderful. Matt, what about you?
The streets are a jungle, let's face it, in this film.
Yes, they are.
We would be the performing monkeys. We'd be dressed up in gorilla suits with bowler hats and would have big butterfly nets.
Have either of you got any respect for who we are at all? It's outrageous. There's the hot pants and the performing monkeys. The space hunters.
Yeah, you said we were covered in feces. Self-respect.
We had buckets, man. We could cover other people in feces.
That's all right then.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Then our gimmicks would just live in the trees and swing from branch to branch.
Brilliant. I can see us in the get-ups that the gorillas have at the end of Trading Places.
Very much like that. It's a very similar vibe.
Well, thank you for the question, fellas. John, Liam, Maxim, Ryan. I don't know if that's satisfied.
I don't think it would have.
I'd be surprised if it did. Sorry.
The hot pants, the space hunters, and the performing monkeys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make a choice. So not the most memorable of lead performances from Michael Beck, and I think we'd all agree that it's a shame that Thomas Waits wasn't in the lead.
Yes.
Yes.
Next up, another unknown. I'm talking about Deborah Van Valkenburg, who plays Mercy. Now, I don't think I'm being controversial here, and I don't think she gives the best performance in the film.
No.
Well, no.
No.
It's not controversial.
But it's a very low bar.
It is.
I do think that she holds her own, though. But I think Van Valkenburg has got something quite beguiling about her. She's got good screen presence. I think she looks like a star as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like it when she completely messes things up for the Warriors, just as they've smoothed things over with the orphans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Chicken noises, asking for one of their vests, shithousing them out the entire scene.
As they're walking away as well, I'm expecting one of them to like snap at any point.
Mm.
Yeah, as they're walking away, why don't you dickheads just walk back home? Fucking hell, steady on, look.
We're doing it, man.
Yeah, no, we're out.
Yeah.
She's a hard ass from the outset and doesn't take no shit. And I do really like that about the character. There's no messing. There's no airs and graces with Mercy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I just don't know what she's doing with the orphans in the first place. Is she a prostitute?
It's kind of the vibe of it.
It doesn't specifically say in the film.
Yeah.
Swan suggests all roads point to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the oldest profession. Nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, but if you look at it and you want that character to be something and cling on to them, then there should have been a new gang that hadn't been invited, that only had a few members, but had kidnapped her and she was being held captive and they were like really starting to build. And then the Warriors wiped them out as they were a new gang and she then cottoned on the Warriors. That would have been fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
But it is confusing. It's very confusing.
I don't think that Mercy is that well written. She's just a hanger-on and doesn't get much to do, to be honest. I don't know why she stays with the Warriors in the first place.
No.
I don't know where she belongs.
No.
She just gets dumped into this story. I don't really understand her situation.
No.
I've really disliked that scene with her and Swan on the subway tracks. The dialogue's pretty awful. The performance is not that much better. And I really don't understand why Mercy would be interested in Swan.
No.
When she's pleading with him. That's horrific, that, isn't it?
Yeah,
Ooh.
it's not very nice.
But I do like it when he's giving her some shit and she says, "What kind of crap is this?"
Yeah.
She's still giving it back.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few negatives there, but I really don't think that's on Van Valkenburg, to be honest. I think she really does stand out. And when it comes to some kind of redemption for Mercy, when I think she realizes that her life could be better than she's making out, she comes to that conclusion on the train when she sees that prom couple.
Yeah.
And that's done without dialogue. I think she sells that well.
Yeah. That's a really great scene.
Yeah. So overall, I think Van Valkenburg, Mercy, a standout of the remaining crew that make it back to Coney. But, you know, low bar.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely brings that character out of the shadows. That character could have been absolutely null and void and forgotten, and she makes a kind of stick in your head.
Yes. Van Valkenburg got totally dinged up during filming, the only person who sustained injuries. Hardly surprising considering she gets manhandled throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
Well, during the subway scene where the police show up, while Mercy and Fox are running away, Fox has hold of Mercy's arm. And as we've said, Waits has stunt double played Fox in this scene, and he didn't let go of Van Valkenburg's arm when they fell to the ground, and so he ended up breaking her wrist.
Oof.
Jesus.
So you'll notice that after this scene, when Mercy reappears, she's wearing a jacket that she found, like I said earlier on. This was to cover the cast on her arm. But she says they're looking for someone in a pink top.
Yeah, looking for somebody in a pink tap.
That's terrible, terrible dialogue replacement from whatever it needed to be. What's the excuse? They're looking for someone in a pink tap. Write it down. All right, just say that. Fucking what?
So what about this blue jacket? Are they not now looking for somebody in a blue jacket?
And a pink top, because you can still see it.
Another scene in the subway when Swan throws the baseball bat at the copper's legs. When he cocks just before throwing the bat, he caught Van Valkenburg square in the face. And she was rushed to hospital. She got 3 stitches in her face. Still got the scar.
Ouch. It's a good throw to the leg as well, though. That's right off the shin.
Right, painful one.
Really painful. And Van Valkenburg was cast after persistence from her agent. Originally, Hill was looking for a Puerto Rican actress for the part. And when he cast her, he told Van Valkenburg that she was the unobvious choice. That's a beautiful thing to say, isn't it?
And she didn't shoot any of her scenes until around a month into the filming schedule. But before she made her first appearance, she spent a week on set to get into the groove of the night shoot. And she said, there's a tribal feeling about this film, and I really felt close to all the guys. Even if I wasn't needed, I wanted to be on set because I belonged with my fellow actors.
There's a camaraderie, isn't there, between everybody?
Yes, yeah. When filming the subway tunnels, Van Valkenburg, Beck and the crew had to negotiate their way through 1.5 inches of black steel dust generated through years of wheels grinding on the tracks.
Right.
And they were also accompanied by giant subterranean rats, which are commonplace in the subway system.
Oh, yeah.
I saw one last year, nearly shit my pants.
Oof, awful.
Absolutely massive. Andrew Laszlo's favourite scene in the whole film is that kiss between Swan and Mercy in the train tunnel. He said that it was timed with the passing train as the reflection created a machine gun-like effect of flashes. And editor David Holden said the shot was worth the price of admission alone.
Right.
It's a good shot, repurpose it for a different scene.
Bold claim.
Yeah.
Because it's an aggressive kiss.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So not necessarily Catherine Hepburn for Van Valkenburg, but she is memorable as Mercy.
Definitely.
Finally on our cast list, an outrageous performance from David Patrick Kelly, who plays the heinous Luther. Matt, what on earth can you say about this performance?
Yeah, he really wants to be Sean Penn, doesn't he? He's kind of got the Sean Penn look. But I mean,
he does look like him, yeah.
You know, what's going on in general? I mean, the acting...
What's going on in general?
I just don't understand. Like, the acting, it's either wooden or it's ridiculous like this. There's no happy medium. No one's going, I'll try this at a 7. It's either 3 or 11. And there's not a lot you can say about this performance other than it's just ludicrous. There's no attempt to give any line, any attempt at subtlety. It's all aimed at the back streets. You know, can't quite hear you, David. A little louder, please.
It's weird, isn't it?
And, you know, sometimes that kind of performance can work. You know, Gary Oldman in Leon choose the scenery like no tomorrow. It still works. This doesn't work, though. He just comes across as a noisy buffoon. And at the end, when Swan asks him why he killed Cyrus, you know, no reason. I just like doing things like that. I mean, come on. After all this, and there was no grand plan to any of it. And again, that kind of thing can work in different hands. The Joker in The Dark Knight famously doesn't have a grand plan. He just makes things up as he goes along, but the writing is obviously substantially better. This is no Joker here. It's
he's not turning around going, I just want to see the world burn, is he?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not happening.
Yeah, exactly. No. I'm just amazed that Hill looked at every line delivery he gives and went, yeah, that's fine, David. More, please. More of that.
Move on. Print it.
Yeah.
There's a scene where his second in command, Cropsey, asks him why he's smiling. And he says, because I'm having a good time. It's a ludicrous delivery. Yeah. Like all of them. It's insane. David Patrick Kelly was cast after Lawrence Gordon and Walter Hill saw him in a Broadway play called Workin'. He played, quotes, a hippie that espoused peace and love but was extremely passive-aggressive, which they thought fit the profile of Luther. Although I think he's just more straight up and down aggressive. There's no passive.
There's nothing passive about this performance.
No, there's nothing passive. No.
For what? For what? When he went in for his second meeting, Hill told him, I think you are the spirit of this movie. Really?
40% proof.
It was during this viewing of Kelly on Broadway that brought Lynn Thigpen to the attention of Hill and Gordon. She was also in Working, and she got cast as the DJ in The Warriors.
Yes.
A much better performance than David Patrick Kelly.
Yes.
And only half a face.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly was a fan of Kurosawa and Toshiro Mifune films, and he said he wore the headband for Luther in homage to Mifune, which I'm sure he's delighted when he heard that.
He's fallen well short.
He has.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he was completely in character at all times during the shoot, according to Joe Wise, who played Cropsey. Like you said, he's second in command. It was until the very last day of filming when he brought his co-stars Irish soda bread and a case of beer, probably to say sorry.
Yeah. Sorry for my performance. Yeah. There's some bread.
Sorry about that. So there's some bread in the case of beer. For what? Oh, for what?
You can dial it down now.
Dial it down now. Thank you.
I think Kelly has got quite lofty opinions of what's going on in this film, and more specifically his performance. Hill said that he told him that he had a Richard III quality, which Kelly used as inspiration for the part. He said, I was reading Hubert Selby's Last Exit to Brooklyn and Sartre's Nausea for this kind of existential epiphany that he's got going on in there.
That's amazing.
What are you talking about?
That is the best. That's one of the best quotes I've ever heard.
Sartre in there, like...
Existential epiphany.
Epiphany? Fucking hell. I've just had one of them. That was amazing.
Well, regarding his performance, Kelly said, I was a working theatre guy, very much into the theatrical avant-garde. The people that influenced me in movies were theatrical innovators who were great at making gestures mythic. What I was trying to do with The Warriors was tweak the method acting conventions of that time, but I broke one of the codes of method acting, which is not to judge your character.
I mean, he's looking at a different performance.
He's living in a different world. He's reading a different script.
Yeah, lofty opinions. Misplaced.
Lofty performance, yeah.
Yes. Well, of course, there are memorable performances elsewhere in the film. We'll be talking about James Remar as Ajax a little later.
Yes. Yeah.
So unknowns aplenty in the Warriors cast, none of them knocking it out of the park. Van Valkenburg has great presence, Kelly is deranged, and Beck is almost mute. Slightly off casting, I think, with Dorsey Wright, who played Cleon, and Thomas G. Waits, who played Fox. Wasted early on. Definitely the best performers in the film.
Yeah.
This episode of All the Right Movies is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work and not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And a special offer to all ATRM listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/ATRM. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/ATRM. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode of All the Right Movies.
The middle.
With gangs mobilising, the Warriors have nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Matt, it's over to you to start off the second act.
Yes, because here we go. Best part of the film for me, the DJ mobilising the gangs.
Christ,
Brilliant.
you've sprightened up a little bit, haven't you?
Hasn't he?
Well, I was waiting for this
go.
bit to come along. Got through the actors, don't have to worry about those anymore.
Yeah, they're done, Matt.
They're done.
Don't need to worry
dusted.
about them
They're
anymore.
thrown under the train tracks. Film is firing on all cylinders in this scene, and it might seem fairly obvious, but all the same, it's such a neat trick to take such an upbeat, joyous song like Nowhere to Run. Not changed in terms of tempo or delivery. It doesn't become like a downbeat or miserable version, but in context, the lyrics just take on a completely different meaning. and it actually becomes quite a threatening song, and I really, really like that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I love
that's
that,
true. Yeah.
And then if you mix that in with all the images of the various gangs taken to the streets, getting ready for battle, that incredible shot of the warriors where they've ducked into the shadows while the police go past and they're bathed in red from the lights.
Yeah.
It's fantastic stuff.
Yeah, great.
I do think this scene promises something that it doesn't deliver, to be honest, because this scene makes us think the streets are going to be overrun by these gangs. The warriors are going to run into someone in every street corner. There's going to be a huge brawl. The vast majority of these we never see again.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. I'd like to see more of these gangs later on in the film. Because this scene, I think, it really has some menace to it. The editing is sensational. And honestly, I think The Warriors is at its best when there's no dialogue. As soon as the characters start talking, the film falls apart. So this scene, no dialogue, just the music, Hill's visual style, the editing, it's brilliant.
We mentioned in the last segment, but Lynn Thigpen, who plays the DJ, when she finally came to see a cut of the film, she was devastated that in all of her scenes, it's just a close-up of her mouth.
Yeah.
She didn't realise because it was shot in a full close-up, but with a full face.
Right.
Obviously, she didn't appreciate that her voice is incredible and how influential that single shot would become on future films.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, after we see the extent of the threat the Warriors are facing, I love it when the fellas have a brush with the Tumbler Seas. I really like the visuals here. The Warriors are lined up in single file awaiting orders, but obviously Ajax is getting restless with his requisite horrific language. Don't miss that when he goes.
Nope. The actors who played the Timber Seas went to a nearby hamburger joint in costume. Many patrons of the restaurant thought they were a real gang and fled the scene of fear of being beaten up. Amazing. They are the most threatening looking gang in the whole film, I think.
They are chains.
Yeah, really Mad Max, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hardly surprising considering when filming this scene under the L train here, the cast got pissed on from above by a street gang.
Oh, really?
Pissed on from a great height.
Wow.
Yeah. Hill said, it seems funny now, but it was not at the time. And then the lads make a run for it. It's kind of like a microcosm of the entire film. They're running from point A to point B, trying desperately not to get their heads kicked in.
Yeah.
I think it's a good action sequence showing that the streets are crawling with gangs out for only one thing. You may not get the rumbles and the action that you want to see, Matt, but I think that it does do a good job of making the streets seem very dangerous for the Warriors.
Yeah, you don't expect all of them to get on the train either. That is a really tense sequence.
It is, yeah, it's a really
You
good
think one of them's going to trip, like one of them would trip and fall, and one of them would get pulled back and be taken to the riffs or whatever. And, it never happens that way, which I really like because that keeps the pace of the film going that they all make it at this point. So I'll go for the bit after the fire. They have to get off the train. This train is done for. And then we'll cut to the rogues at the newsstand or the sweet stand or whatever it is, where the sweets available at midnight. I mean, fantastic. Would have loved that as a kid. I would have been like, this is the best film I've ever seen. That's why people call it.
Chocolate.
Yeah, just get chocolate at midnight. Hey. But it's really good. Yeah, I think Kelly's really great here. I'd honestly really like his performance. I know I kept a bit quiet during that whole point when you talked about him as an actor, but I do really, really enjoy it because I think he's having so much fun. And he really injects this energy, and every time he's on the screen, you don't want him to be on the screen, but you want to hear what he's got to say. You think he's going to do something that you just don't expect. He's got this real energy, this electricity to him, and it really works here because he's on the phone to somebody and we don't know who he's on the phone to. And this is, again, a huge missed opportunity for the plot to become a little bit more complex, just to become a little bit more intricate, just to become a little bit more mature, I guess, in that he's talking to who he described as being the boss, although we never actually know who he's talking to.
No.
Yeah.
And they could have come to the point where they're talking to Luther and he's totally calmed and said, has the fire worked? Yeah, the fire's worked, right? If we stop them, yeah, right, well, they did this, and right, well, oh no, but the field, the AC's field, all right, okay, so it's our turn, right? So let's go for it. And then he could have lost his mind and just been like, right, it's up to us now because we own this place. And I think it's just a really missed opportunity where I was expecting a lot more from this scene. But what I do get is, again, just Hill having loads of fun, just Kelly having loads of fun, and just really bringing home this ambiguity to the film, which someone could look at and go, that's really clever because they're not giving you all the clues. But at the same time, I think that they just didn't really care about an underlying plot. They just it was just about this computer game, and they just kept going forward with it, and they didn't have to explain anything about it. It's great, but at the same time, it's a really missed opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I do, in a certain respect, agree with you as well, that Kelly does bring a kind of unpredictability to his performance. You never know what he's going to do next. What about the money you owe?
Yeah. For what? and then throw it
Well,
back.
all of this shit that you've just stolen, you dickhead.
And the rogues, you might notice, have a hearse as their wheels. And apart from the driver's seat, there were no other seats in the car. Joel Weiss, who plays Cropsey, drove, and the rest sat on crates.
Yeah, I don't think the budget stretched as far as seats. A prerequisite for a car, usually.
Or just a car with seats. No, just can't even afford that.
No. Just one.
Yeah.
So the boys escaped the Turnbulls by the skin of their teeth. They talk the talk, but so far, they ain't walked the walk. So the fire has derailed the Warriors and they're back on the streets. Their encounter with the legendary Baseball Furies is coming up. But first, they're up against a crew so far down, they ain't even on the map. Real low class.
That's right.
It's the Orphans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When they run into the Orphans and they have that parlay to get permission across their territory, in terms of writing and probably acting as well, I think this might be the best scene in the film. I mean, my eternal issue with the film, which is how ridiculous are some of these gangs, that doesn't get alleviated by seeing the Orphans. I mean, no wonder no one takes them seriously. What a bunch of scruffs. Everyone else has put some effort into how they look. And they're just standing there in these like sweat-stained T-shirts and jeans.
Yeah. It looks like they've just been released from prison.
Yeah, they just look like they need a good wash. They're horrible. And we've talked about him a bit already, but the person who's great here is Thomas Waits. This feels like it was the first scene shot when Fox was going to be a major player because Waits steals the scene.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's actually acting. I mean, he dominated when Swan gets him to come over to do the parlay. And the look he has on his face when the leader says, the Orphans have a heavy rep. Mess with us and you'll find that out. And he's just rolling his eyes at him. And then when he reads out the clipping from the newspaper, yeah, that's really heavy. The Orphans, right? Our youth worker, she talks about you guys all the time. Like, can barely keep the sarcasm out of his voice, which completely goes over the Orphans' heads. Because the second in command
they love
goes,
it. He laps it up.
They love it. We ain't got one. Oh, that must be because you guys are so bad. They're afraid of you. Wait, in this scene, just dominated. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he's great.
He really makes the scene for me. It's very funny. It's really well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, why would any gang carry clippings of their handiwork around with them? Tough mothers.
This is how hard we are.
Yeah, so after the gang gets split up and Fox buys it, unfortunately, Swan, Cowboy, Snow and Ajax encounter probably the most iconic gang in the film, outside of the Warriors, the Baseball Furies.
Mm-hmm.
And this is such effective costume design and makeup for me. They look so menacing in their war paint. They have a simple but effective weapon in the baseball bat, and those boys can run.
Yes, they can.
The Furies are made up of stunt performers. Steve Chambers and Leon Delaney were among the group and said that when they were brought in, they were expected to run at full speed, take after take after take. They ended up vomiting. They claim that the filmmakers were under the impression that stuntmen were superhuman beings, which, I mean, you kind of think, but how
just keep
that's running. A lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, yeah.
But when they ended up vomiting, filmmakers thought, well, we need to get somebody else in. So the New York Roadrunners, like a running club from New York, were drafted in to help with the Furies chase scene.
Right.
They ended up working just one night. No stunt work, just running, full tilt, take after take after take after take, until they threw up.
Right.
And then they were fired. There's an amazing moment here when they're asking if they've lost them. And then the Furies appear in the shot as the music starts pulsing away and Cowboy says, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's a great visual from the film with an incredible sense of menace with that music. And then we get into Riverside Park and there's some outstanding wide shots of the Warriors kind of coming down the stairs on the lower level with the Furies above them.
Yeah.
It's a great chase.
Yeah.
And I do like when Ajax gets what he's been looking for all night. Cowboy's tired, and that's the only excuse Ajax needs to bust some heads. He's sick of running from these wimps.
Yeah.
So when Ajax and Cowboy are running in that moment, if you look closer, you can see James Remar slapping Tom McKendrick on the arse a number of times. Remar did this to encourage McKendrick to run a little bit faster.
It's clear as day.
It is clear as day.
He's done it about 3 or 4 times.
Man, come on!
I must say, Ajax loves asses, doesn't he?
He does.
He thinks Cleon was caught by the cops with a nightstick up his ass. He threatens to shove the Baseball Furies bat so far up their ass to turn into a popsicle.
Yeah.
And he's tapping McKittrick's ass left, right, and centre.
Protesting a bit too much, isn't he?
Just a little
he
bit
definitely
too much.
is. The Furies came about because of Hill's love of both baseball and the rock band Kiss.
Right.
Stick Gene Simmons in baseball colours and you've got yourself the Baseball Furies. Going to hell.
And there was an uptown gang called Second Base New York who wore leather jackets, not baseball outfits, but they are referenced by the DJ when she says that the Warriors are on second base.
Yeah, I mean, this taps into a theory I got when I was watching it for the 5th time this week. And it's just like the whole thing seems like an allegory for a baseball game. It's like they leave home, every single station they get to is a home plate that they have to pass with a challenge in which to do it. They get to the baseball Furies, and even she says they've passed second base. And then when they get home to a home run, but some of them have actually been struck out and they don't all make it back as a team. So I think it's got this whole kind of baseball analogy to the whole film.
It definitely has. Yeah. It's a great point.
Yeah.
When editor Billy Weber came to cut this fight scene, he'll give him a few instructions. He said, don't worry that they're trying to kill each other. Just make it as fun as possible. And if possible, make it like a Kurosawa film.
Really fun then.
Loads of rain in black and white.
Yeah.
Weber said he thinks he made it look like your Jimbo.
Did he? It looks more like game night.
Yeah. And during the Furies battle, Michael Beck got a little bit too into it with his baseball bat. You have to bear in mind, these weren't props either. They are genuine baseball bats at the wielding. And he slammed it into the midriff of one of the Furies, ended up breaking 3 of the guy's ribs. And Beck didn't find this out until a reunion in 2015.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, if you look at it, it's quite a wallop. It's the guy with the red face.
Right, yes.
He really, really clatters him and goes down straight out of the frame.
Yeah. Looks fun, though.
It is fun. Oh, yeah.
Looks like your Jimbo,
obviously.
Yeah, certainly does.
But I think it's a standout sequence in the film. Personal favourite for me. I love it.
Yeah. So after this, we get the moment where, which is just the most outrageous part, where Ajax just sees this woman on a bench and says, you can go ahead if you want, but I'm going to get a little exercise after everything that he's been through. And I think this is just reaffirming the fact that he's just trying to prove to the rest of the Warriors that he's not gay, that he's not attracted to like the rest of them, and he's trying to push them away. And it's just so evident because then when he goes up to her, he doesn't understand how to talk to her. He talks to her like a child. Yeah. It's almost like it's like a mother figure. And then when he's there with her, and she's like, I bet all the chicks like all those muscles. She's like, the automated bots that people get when they pay £5 to go to some kind of dating site, and they just get that answer that they want. It's like, I bet the chicks like those muscles. Oh yeah, I'm getting involved in this one. This is an automated bot, obviously, but it's just perfect. But it just plays them like play for play, just so generically. And then when he gets involved, he's just so in there. It's disgusting.
It's horrible.
It's really, it's if he's never ever been with a woman before. That's if he doesn't understand what he needs to do, how he needs to do it, and it's just really, really forceful. I love it when he gets handcuffed to that bench because I'm like, thank fuck for that. He's got what he deserves. But I do think he's a very confused character. But the amount of times that he says the word that is just abhorrent, and the amount of times that the amount of times that he tries to disprove his masculinity by being in charge, it doesn't really work.
No, it doesn't.
He is trapped, and I think he's trapped in his own sexuality, and that's as deep as I'm going to get with the Warriors. And I think that's just a real testament to me watching the film and getting something out of it. But it's there if you look for it. It really is.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Westy, and I think it's quite poetic that he gets found out and gets arrested trying to cover up his sexuality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Hill has said that he would have loved to bring Ajax back into the picture after his fracas with the police, but couldn't come up with a way to do it, which is totally understandable.
Yeah, I just think this is the right way to go for Ajax. He gets what he deserves.
Yeah, I mean, if Cleon goes out that way, and Cleon's a really strong character, this guy can go out this way dead easy. Not a problem.
Yeah.
And to get into character, James Remar hung around Coney Island to get a feel for the various reprobates that filled the streets. And he approached someone working on one of the games on the boardwalk and asked him what kind of cats hung out in Coney, and he was told the worst kind.
There's your inspiration.
Yep.
In this scene, Sonny Landon plays the cop who takes Ajax out. First, it's Blink and you'll miss him.
Yeah.
But he must have done something right because Hill brought him back for 48 hours a few years later.
Oh, yeah.
Erwin Keyes plays the copper who clocks Ajax. He was actually in line to play the character of Ajax, but Hill thought he was maybe a little bit too old.
Oh, right, nice.
Right.
Considering he looks about 45, then yes, he's far too old.
You're definitely far
to play an 18-year-old.
Yeah. That's Mercedes Rule as well, isn't it? Playing the policewoman.
It is.
Yeah. It's quite a shock to see. I think it was only a second or third role.
Yeah, very early.
But I mean, it's always a joy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. She's fantastic in the film.
Yeah, she is. She's great. So Ajax's nights in the park are over for a while, and the Warriors' numbers are dramatically diminishing, and Coney is still miles away.
The crew.
2 credited writers on the Warriors, a first-time writing effort from David Shaber, with rewrites coming from the big man, Walter Hill.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think of the writing on the Warriors?
I just don't have any idea how this would work as a book to begin with, because it's so visual. It's one long pursuit. It's a lot of getting off trains, getting on trains, waiting for trains. Yeah. And the things that people remember from this film are visual: the look of the gangs, the feel of the city, the graffiti, how run down Coney Island is. None of that to me feels like it comes from the page, apart from the barest of descriptions. And if I didn't know it came from a book and you said, where do you think it was adapted from? I'd have said something like, it feels like something from 2000 AD or something like that.
Nice. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
something you'd
I mean,
see
it was
there.
a really popular novel as well, wasn't it? It was really popular.
It was, yeah. It was.
Yeah, which is bizarre to me, because I think it's such a visual experience. It's not something where you dig in the writing, and that's why I think it feels confused, and why I was confused. Why isn't this a dystopian sci-fi film? Because it feels like it should be. You know, because you have all these gangs scavenged in the streets and living in these gloomy subterranean bases, and they're driving around in burnt up cars. It's got a real Mad Max feel to it at times.
Yeah.
It has, yes.
Which makes it feel really strange when things happen, like the cops arrive or they go to a newsstand, because that's real world stuff, and it doesn't feel like
it's a functioning city.
It's a functioning city.
And the telephones work. Yeah.
Phones work, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it belongs in the world of the Warriors. So I'm just kind of left with more questions than answers, really. You know, again, the police, there's literally been an assassination and a riot a few blocks away, but they're all just pissing about in the park, hoping to, like, catch someone.
Yeah.
Try to assault Mercedes Rule. So I don't know if it's the material itself or just something has been lost in translation. It just feels very muddled to me.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I get that, and I may be in love with the film, but I certainly can see where its failings are, and I agree with you on that one, Matt.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in love with the linear narrative. I mean, it's very, very simple. There are no concerns afforded to frivolous subplots. They've got no place in this world, in this film, in the writing. It's about our boys getting from A to B, a straight line, which is mirrored in the film because that's what the Warriors have to do, just walk that straight line down to Coney.
Yeah.
And you can tell what Hill is saying when he said he wanted to give it kind of like a fantasy element. Just one look at the costumes tells you that it's very tongue-in-cheek. Take the hi-hats, for example.
Yeah.
And we've had a laugh about them, but start thinking about the logistics of those guys going about their day-to-day life, and the whole thing falls apart. How do they communicate with each other?
Yeah.
How could they possibly be an effective gang if they have to mime everything? Yeah, but I think all of that tells you right away that you don't need to take any of this too seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
But within this almost too simple narrative is a film that's got so much detail and world building. The number of gangs conceived for the film is nobody's business. They all have a unique identity, something similar to what you were saying at the top, Westy. They all hail from a different part of town and are influenced by their surroundings and their ethnic heritage.
Yeah, definitely.
The world is written so tantalizingly for me. I just need to see more of it from these different gangs' perspective. I think it's an untapped gold mine of an idea and a world. This is the cinematic universe that I can get behind. This is 5 seasons, 20 episodes, season on HBO, TV Bonanza. Let's get it made.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, I could definitely tap into that, where the gangs just represent where they are, not where they're from.
Yeah, I'd love that. I've mentioned this word a lot, but it's got such a strong sense of identity. It comes from the location, the narrative, the costumes, the gang names. It's all so evocative to me. It's not perfect writing, but it's so cinematic. I really love it.
Yeah. I think the writing for me is the pace and the way that it is just quite breakneck, and it does know where it's going, but sometimes it doesn't know how it's getting there or why it's really moving in that direction. And I think it's great that it's based over a single night, like you said earlier on, Luke. I think films like that are great, where you've got that real tension and how is this going to end? And I know that I'm going to see the end of it. Like it's not going to play out ambiguously, and I am going to have to the sun's going to have to come up at some point.
Yeah.
And the thing is with the writing, I'd honestly 100% think there's good dialogue in here. It's just badly delivered.
Right. Okay.
I think if you look at Swan with the punks, and Mercy comes up and says, "They're after you," and he says, "I know they're on my arse," and then looks at them and says, "And now they know that I know."
Yeah.
It's like, that's a really good bit of dialogue if that was delivered just with a little bit more subtlety, and just a little bit more confidence. And imagine if we had the likes of the dialogue now, and it's even all of Cyrus's dialogue, keep it exactly the same, but give it to Denzel in Training Day.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now you're
And
talking.
him saying,
Powerful.
"Can you dig it?"
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's some really, really good writing in here. And it's just a little bit confused. I think it's just been it's been like a comic book that's been torn up and the pages are just kind of in the wrong order.
Yeah.
Loads of great little bits, but nothing substantial as a whole. And I think that's a real shame. But that's not a reflection on the writing. I think it's just a reflection on how the writing was construed.
Yeah. As mentioned, The Warriors is based on the 1965 book of the same name by Sol Uric. The book and the film drew inspiration from Xenophon's Anabasis, a story from Greek mythology about the Battle of Canaxa between Athens and Sparta and the subsequent 1,000-mile march to the sea undertaken by a mercenary army who were surrounded by rivals.
Yeah, it's like 300, isn't it?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
This inspiration for the film made it into the prologue for the director's cut in 2005 that we talked about.
Yeah.
Uric's research for the book included interviewing gang members of varying size and ethnicity in New York. He thought the gang members were telling him things that he wanted to hear. So to get a more accurate description of their activities, body language, speech patterns, he hired a busted up truck, punched holes in the sides and spied on the gangs. Outrageous lengths. Dismissively, Uric said, "It's not my best book. I wrote it as a kind of joke. It took me 3 weeks to write."
Oh,
What a
Christ.
dick.
He loved the book immediately and wanted to make it even less realistic for the big screen by setting it in the near future with the certain West Side Story feel, albeit without the songs.
Yes, good.
And he said he was drawn to the extreme narrative simplicity and stripped down quality.
Yeah, in the book, there were almost no white characters. Hill wanted to carry this on into the film, but Paramount vetoed it. For commercial reasons, they didn't want an all-black cast.
I do think it is probably representative of New York and the different ethnicities and different cultures that the city is famous for. I still think it is representative of the city.
That's what I love about it, how multicultural the gangs are.
Yeah. I mean, I love all the gangs in there. There are 21 identifiable gangs in the film. We've talked about quite a few of them. There are dozens more listed in the official screenplay who are either not identifiable or just not on screen at all. Just a long list of gang names. There's about 50 of them. Favourites of mine include the Gun Hill Dancers, just like the Solid Gold Dancers from Scrooged.
Nice. You want to see some, got some booty for you.
The book here for you.
The hot pants.
Yeah, the hot pants. See, it fits in, doesn't it?
I regret my decision now, yeah, it does.
And there was another prominent gang in the original screenplay who were cut at the last minute. The Dingoes, and the Dingoes were a gay gang who wore blonde wigs, leather fetish gear, complete with chrome spikes and had Dobermans, and they had an important part in the narrative as they were responsible for kidnapping Swan before he breaks free at the end for the Coney Showdown.
Wow. It's at the end of Armed and Dangerous, these guys sound like.
Whoa, that is a deep cut, Westy. Is that Eugene Levy?
Eugene Levy and John Candy. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a deep cut. Watch that film if you haven't seen it, because you'll laugh at the end. You'll laugh all the way through, to be honest. But Hill has since expressed his disappointment at not filming the Dingoes. This was down to budgetary cuts from Paramount. Hill said the Dingoes weren't villainous. It was not a scene that was negative about the gay gang. I thought it was just another way of staying ahead of the times. Swan was their prisoner and he got away, but they had their dignity.
Yeah, I think he argued that all the gangs were after the Warriors and the Dingoes finally captured one of them.
Yeah,
because there was misinformation. There wasn't, they were just a heinous gang.
Yeah.
Originally cast in the Dingoes were John Snyder, who ended up playing the gas station attendant in the film.
Okay.
And another actor who would have played one of the Dingoes, remarkably, Kevin Bacon.
Amazing.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
I would have paid to have seen that, Snyder and Bacon. Love it.
Yeah.
Other changes were made to the fate of some of the Warriors. In the film, 3 of them don't make it back home, Cleon, Fox and Ajax. But originally, Vermin and Cochise got bumped off as they bopped their way to Coney as well.
Cochise was supposed to get cornered in the park by the Furies and wind up dumped in the Hudson River. David Harris, who plays Cochise, said it came down to the studio that Cochise doesn't die.
Wow, came from up above. Well, I think David Harris is great as Cochise.
He is.
I think he's great.
Yeah, he is. Really good.
And Terry Mikos, as we've said, plays Vermin. And he said that to set himself apart from the strong roles that the likes of Michael Beck had, he played his part more comedic. He said, I started playing Vermin based on an old Hercules cartoon character, this half man, half animal. I was able to end up having my role extended. I think Vermin was supposed to be killed off, but he became funny.
Well, that's one way of putting it.
Yeah, a lot of high opinions of themselves in this film, isn't there?
Yeah, the Lizzies were supposed to bump Vermin off in that scene.
Right.
Right.
So Yorick wasn't a huge fan of the film. He liked the speed of the opening, but once Cyrus started talking, it fell apart for him. He said, for me, the best moment of the movie was my name flashing up and covering the whole screen.
Nice.
Ego much?
Yep.
Yeah, the best bit of the film.
Maybe not the most sophisticated piece of writing, but the world of the Warriors, stuff full of colourful characters, is incredibly memorable.
Yeah, it sticks with you. Absolutely.
Now we have a banger of a score from Barry DeVorzon and a good soundtrack with, in my opinion, a few unusual numbers, but we'll get to that. Actually, let's get to it now. I think DeVorzon's score is great. Synthesized heaven with some awesome guitar licks. It sounds like rock music full of East Coast muscle, and it gives the images a raised pulse and a sense of frenzied urgency for me. We've talked about the opening scene with the talking heads, the Furies chase, where the score is at its strongest. Love it. Couldn't love it anymore. The pop songs in the film, a little off for me. I really like the two numbers during the Lizzie scene, Love is a Fire and Moving Too Slow. In the City at the end is great, but I've really got to question the inclusion of, I do take your point, Matt, that it does take on additional meaning, but consider Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, and then we get this one. A paper-thin cover of Nowhere to Run. Despite Luther Vandross doing the back ends, I just think it sounds a bit too much like Muzak.
Yeah, it's not budgetary, though.
Probably, but I think they could have done differently. I think there's a few other songs in there. Echoes in My Mind is too soft, and Last of the Ancient Breed wouldn't be out of place playing at the end of a Rambo film. It's horrific, that one. It's the last track on the soundtrack album. I just don't think that these reflect the time. This film was shot in 1978. New York City was the epicenter of disco and punk rock, and hip-hop was just about to sneak through, all at the same time. I don't think the hip cats of the city would be listening to anything else but one of these. And the fact that the film could be seen as a near future could excuse this, but some of the songs that are included aren't from the future, they're from the past for me.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I just think it's a massive missed opportunity. The guy who curated the soundtrack was Kenny Vance. He'd been on the music scene since the 50s, so he's got an unbelievable pedigree. He sings on the track In Havana that plays at the Candy Stand.
Yeah.
And I think Vance should have he's curating the music, go to CBGB's. These are all in New York. Go to Max's Kansas City, Studio 54, uptown to the block parties in the streets of the Bronx. Get a feel of what music is actually going on. Get tracks from unsigned artists, and we'll be having a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
Take nothing away from DeVorzon's score, though. I love that. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. I'm a big fan of the score. I think the score's got a really good energy to it. It's got a real pace to it. I love when the hi-hats come in. I love the build to it. I love the guitars because they just sit and there's synth in there and there's them little bits of organ in there. And then there's the wonderful drum fills, which seem to me like the same white pan transitions that he uses visually.
All right, great.
And you just kind of sweep over. And great dialogue, especially in the opening sequence that cuts into the music and the music kind of sits side by side with it. But again, with you, I mean, I don't know if In the City works for me. Is that the ultimate song when you've escaped all of this and you're one of the best gangs and you've got Joe Walsh doing his solo number and then it's on an Eagles album later because they happen to like it because it was on a film?
Yeah.
It doesn't really sit with me, whereas you've got, like you said there, songs that should be in it. Rocket to Russia came out in 77.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you've got the Ramones in there, and as soon as if the Baseball Fuse had turned up with a Ramones track, you fucking forget about it.
Yeah, I Want to Be Sedated, Judy is a Punk, anything like that.
Anything like that, it would have really worked. So I mean, the disco movement could have come into the hip hop stuff, but again, I think this is very budgetary. I think this, what can we get and who can we get to display this? He's hit home with Nowhere to Run because them lyrics do take on a double meaning.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, the thing that really shines for me in this is the soundtrack, the actual soundtrack by Barry DeVorzon, and it's an exceptional work, and it would still be popular now. It still stands up. So I think the soundtrack itself wasn't really of its time, or maybe it was of its time, but wasn't ahead of its time. But certainly the score definitely is ahead of its time.
Yeah, I agree. Matt, what do you think? Hat-trick?
Yeah, pretty much. The score is one of the elements that resonates the most strongly, and I don't really have any issues with it. It's a bit John Carpenter with the eerie synths, it becomes a lot more funkier than anything he ever did, obviously.
But then again, like Carpenter ripped, did you not think Carpenter ripped it off in the opening of Big Trouble in Little China? It's like
Possibly, yeah. Does sound similar,
maybe.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm just doing it. Yeah, I missed that trick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. And it's got some, nice crunchy guitar licks in there. And yeah, I do like that version of Nowhere to Run, but I think of the original songs, Love is a Fire, that was the real standout for me.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think that's a great one.
Yeah, it is. It's great. Sounds a bit like Pat Benatar or like Early Heart or something like that.
Yeah, Early Heart. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Great.
Definitely.
I mentioned In Havana. It's credited to Kenny Vance and Ismael Miranda. Unbelievably, some of the backends on that song are provided by a very unusual source. Do you know this?
I do not.
No.
It's Chevy Chase.
Chevy Chase. Wow. We haven't mentioned Chevy Chase in a long time.
No, you didn't think it would come up here, did you?
I didn't think it would come up here at all.
Yeah, I mean, I had to do a lot of digging because I really don't believe this, but it appears that this is the real Chevy Chase. He's Chevy Chase and you're not. But there's still something niggling in my mind that this can't possibly be true because Chevy Chase singing backends on this Latin-inflected salsa number, the whitest man in the world when he was at the height of his fame.
Makes perfect sense to me. That's definitely something Chevy Chase would do.
That's
he
true
didn't even sing
enough.
on You Can Call Me Al, but he's on the video.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's something he would do just to kind of piss people off, I think.
But this song, so low-key, nobody knows this song outside of the confines of this film. They haven't got the budget, but they've got the budget for Chevy Chase, the greatest comedian at that time.
Yeah, because he probably said he'd do it for free for the laughs.
Yeah, and I do know that Chevy Chase does have the voice of an angel. He's got perfect pitch, apparently.
Yeah.
So it may well be true. And he is credited on, like Discogs and the Wikipedia site. He's also listed on the record. I've checked and double-checked. It says Chevy Chase.
Amazing. Great in National Lampoons as well.
Great in National Lampoons.
River.
So I think on the whole, great music accompanying the Warriors, adding to its unique sense of identity.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Rounding off our crew list, we have cinematography by Andrew Laszlo.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, do you want to take the lead on this one?
The unsung hero of the film, I think, because whatever other problems I have with this film, how it looks isn't one of them. Every frame is memorable. Every shot is so balanced in terms of depth, in terms of shadow. It's dark, but it's never dimly lit. You can always make out what's going on. And obviously, part of this is that incredible location shooting. And he really seems to like soak up the rain that's on the streets and the humidity in the air.
And especially that cemetery scene, how dark that is and how moist it is. But you know exactly what's going on.
Exactly. I mean, if I had to pick a favourite shot, I think I would go for when the Warriors get to Coney Island and they're all in silhouette because he's shooting it directly into the sun.
Right, brilliant.
Nice.
But again, it's just so well judged because it's not over bright. It just thing looks absolutely incredible. And it's that cliche thing of every frame is a picture in this film. And I think if you didn't have the score and if you didn't have Laszlo, I don't know what kind of film you would have here.
I think this is just a massive influence on everyone who tried to shoot in New York afterwards, especially at nighttime New York. I think it's a massive influence on Taxi Driver. I think it's a massive influence on Carpenter. I think it's a massive influence on Michael Mann, especially if you look at Thief. I think it's just one of them films where it's very confident in its delivery of the visuals and nothing looks lit. Everything looks like it was just shot the way it was shot. Everything looks like natural light in the location, which gives the locations, as I said earlier on, their real place to shine. And it seems like the Warriors are just in the light where the location allows them to be in the light. And which gives it a very naturalistic look, but at the same time, it's lit enough, like Matt said, where you're not bogged down with it, and it doesn't look like it was overly done. I think it's just absolutely brilliant, and he's a brilliant cinematographer, and he was an influence on himself, because, I mean, after this, he shot Southern Comfort, and then he shot First Blood.
Yeah.
And he's just done so much in this film, where, like, you're going to shoot a night exterior, you're going to look at Laszlo's work on The Warriors, and you're going to say, I'm going to do it like that. And it's got that neon look, it's got that vibe with neon synths, it all works. And like Matt said, I think the only thing that lets this whole film down is actually the dialogue. If this was a silent film with a soundtrack with songs that we could suggest, the Ramones, decent soundtrack that reflected the time, if you get Vaughan's score in there, and if you get the visuals by Laszlo and the direction from Hill without the clunky dialogue, would have an absolute masterpiece on my hands.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you've said it a few times, but missed opportunity, I think, Westy.
Yeah, too right.
But this certainly isn't that opening shot of the Wonder Wheel, the purple piercing through the nighttime sky, and the rumble of the train as it pulls into Stillwell Avenue. Oh,
It's
Jesus
just that
Christ.
dissolve into the light as well. It's from pure darkness and just the Wonder Wheel lights up. It's
magnificent.
fantastic stuff. Yeah, wonderful. You just want to go there.
Yeah, it looks like the most beguiling and attractive places.
Yeah.
And what I think Laszlo does magnificently is contrast the daytime and nighttime in Coney. You've got those alluring images at the start, and at the end, the place looks like a complete crap house full of dirt and grime.
It looks really cold.
Yeah.
Whereas the nighttime looks hot.
Yeah,
and
it does.
The daytime
it
is
does.
just really cool. So he's using all of the reds and the oranges to kind of make this warmth and this fire like the hell of the city. And then there's like this cold, almost purgatory of when they get back home. Is this what we fought for? It's not heaven. We haven't made it out, really. It's just this cold place. He hasn't got a lot of time. Andy's shooting 35 mil. Andy's shooting available light. And there's gangs threatening to kill people. So, I mean, he's done an incredible job.
He has.
And filming at night did prove to be tricky for more than one reason. Laszlo had a torrid time with lighting. In particular, light-sensitive streetlights were switched off by the lighting rigs used for shots. They got over this little problem by taping over the sensors on the streetlights, so they just kept on shooting.
Yeah, because it was all on location as well. You're at the mercy of the city itself. The majority of shots are underexposed because there was nowhere near enough money in the budget for sufficient lighting. And Laszlo was able to make internal shots of the subway. Like you said earlier on, Westy, it's bright because he was working in a smaller space and he stole spare bulbs from the subway system to light those carts.
Which he knows that for the contrast, though, and I think you underexpose the outside shots so it just looks a little bit more grimy, and I think that's on purpose. Again, it's just, necessity.
He also wet the streets that they were filming on for a couple of reasons. The first one was to reflect the lighting setup, making it seem brighter.
Yeah.
And the second one was continuity because they were dealing with thunderstorms during the night on certain days.
Brilliant.
Right. And during the baseball furies chasing the park, Laszlo installed lighting into the branches of the trees above the actors, and if you know they're there, they're very easy to see. And he also got creative in concealing additional lights elsewhere. Others were hidden behind fake signs like bar, restaurant, to make the scene more dynamic.
Nice.
Yeah, they're just hidden in places where they look like they should be naturally, but they were put there to make the sets pop, the images pop.
Yeah.
Looks great. So great all-round work on the Warriors, with the crew doing a bang-up job to make the film stand out among the crowd. Special mention should also go to Bobby Mannix and her outstanding costume design.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Definitely.
The end.
Into the third act, the boys get separated. They have an almighty fight with the punks in the bathroom, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
First up, Vermin, Courtcheese and Rembrandt kick back with the Lizzies, but the chicks are packed. I mean, this is just outrageous for a number of reasons. The gang have been split up and they're running for their lives. Every gang they meet wants to kill them. So what's the best thing to do? Be completely exposed in the middle of the city with a group of strangers offering easy sex, no questions asked. Get it straight in there.
Why not?
At least Rembrandt is a little suspicious. Courtcheese asks where the dudes are, but Vermin is in absolute shambles. With dialogue like, when I got off that subway, I saw you and I thought, oh, baby, throw it my way. What on earth are you talking about, Vermo? This is ridiculous. And then when he gets in there, it looks like you're the winner. But like I've said, there are two bangers on the jukebox. The girls have got plenty of drink, plenty of smokes to go around, a pool table, a very alluring dance, sexy enough to entice any stoic warrior. So, fantastic. And the Lizzies tap right into that Greek mythology that Hill was inspired by for the film. For me, they are the sirens from Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
Luring the warriors in with their sexuality before they pounce.
I saw him first.
I seen him first. Turn him into a horny toad.
A hornet toad. Pete!
That's all, brother, where art thou, for people who don't know what we're just quoting randomly.
It's a deep cut.
And when the Lizzies finally reveal themselves, I'd love that line when Rembrandt screams, shit, the chicks are packed. Oh, it's so good. And then it's absolute pandemonium. Gunshots being fired with scant regard for anyone's safety. Knives being slashed through the air. Rembrandt takes one in the arm. Vermin smacks one of the girls right in the mush.
Yeah.
And Courtcheese slams a chair into another one of them.
Madness.
And then they bust through that door, making their escape. It is a funny scene. It's obviously not to be taken too seriously, but I absolutely love it.
Of course you do.
That's great. And I think the Lizzies are great. The
They are
actresses
great,
playing
yeah.
the girls are great.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah. I mean, it's all kicking off now because you go from this fight to the fight in the bathroom, which I want to talk about because this action sequence, I mean, it really crunches. And it's a scene where even the weird aspect of it works because the thought of gangs on roller skates, again, not particularly intimidating, but that lone guy following them down through the station actually works really well.
Yeah, creepy.
I think if you call yourselves the punks, maybe try to look like punks instead of the roller skates and dungarees combo.
Rugby tops.
Rugby tops.
The Bay City rolling skates. Are they?
That's it. Bay City rollers,
Bay City rollers, yeah.
Thing is, well, by this point, I think I've given up trying to reconcile the idea that these are tough street gangs with what they actually look like.
Yeah.
And honestly, I do mean this as a compliment. A lot of the film feels like very 1960s Batman TV series to me.
Right. Okay.
The way they just kind of keep running these outlandish gangs.
Yeah, it needs more Dutch angles, doesn't it?
It needs more Dutch angles. I tell you what, when it kicks off in the bathroom, you really could have like Biff and Pow and Bam shooting out on screen.
Crack.
Crack, shame you don't, but the music is great in the scene. And I think this is the scene finally you get that grit that I associate with Walter Hill, you know, fists are flying, baseball bats in the gut, heads getting slammed in the wall, knives are out, elbows in the face. Even Mercy getting in on the act with that cheeky little hair pull and shoulder bite on that one guy. I mean, I don't think your teeth are that strong that will bite through denim, but you know, you should give him a go.
Worth a try.
But the best bit is that guy who gets slugged in the face so hard, it spins him around, sends his face cracking into the wall, and then when he turns back around, gets a baseball bat in the gut.
Yeah, it's great.
And that baseball bat is hit so hard it splinters in two. I mean, that is one unlucky guy. I mean, even Swan is useful here in this scene and looks the part. So yeah, it's a great scene. And absolute definite influence on Edgar Wright for The World's End.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
similar scene
it's a carbon copy, isn't it?
Carbon copy.
Yeah, it is.
Although the film was shot almost entirely on the streets of New York City, the only set build was for this exact scene. And this was shot in Astoria Studios up in Queens.
Yeah, I think you can tell because I think the wooden doors look like styrofoam when they get obliterated.
They do, yeah. They're far too easily bust open.
Yeah.
And that kid that's on the roller skates, he was a stuntman. He didn't know how to roller skate before the film.
Right.
They just learned how to do it. And I think he's really convincing when he's just going backwards and forwards.
He looks fine,
he absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, he looks absolutely great. Walter Hill asked him if he could roller skate, and he said, "Oh yeah, I can." Completely lied, and then just spends the time in between the audition and the shoot roller skating up and down upstate New York.
Amazing.
And when filming this scene, there was an unexpected visitor on set, Ed Koch, who was mayor of New York at the time. He arrived alongside movie royalty Gloria Swanson of Sunset Boulevard fame. Swanson was too in the facility with Koch because she had filmed a number of her silent pictures back in the day there. And Hill, obviously surprised by this visit, gave them the tour around the set.
Nice.
Hill said that Koch was a big supporter of the film when all the controversy sparked upon release, and credits some of that to his encounter with Koch and Swanson at Astoria Studios. Smooth things over for him.
Yeah, I'll go into the bit where it gets actually quite like emotionally real, and I bought this sequence, the train sequence with Mercy and Swan, and they get on there and you've got the prom couples coming on.
Yes.
And it's just a real measure of class and the difference of class and the difference of what's happening in this city at this time. You know, there's two couples having the best nights of their lives, and then there's these guys having the worst night of their life. And I think it's so well done by Hill here, and it's so well measured, especially the just where they're looking Mercy up and down, and they see how dirty her feet are, and they see how dirty they both are, and it's just wordless. And this is what we've been harking back to, I think, the whole episode. If this was a silent film and this is all you need, and this is how well he shows it, when Mercy just goes to move her hair and make herself more presentable, Swan just takes her hand down. No, this is who you are. This is who we are. Don't try and be something that you're not. And then this little cortege is just dropped at the door, and he just the flowers there, and it just when he comes out and it just gives it to her, and it's not an emotional moment where he's like, "This is for you," and there's like strings come in, and you just see there's a romance. He's like, "I just don't want to say anything go to waste." It's just how it shows how little they have, and how little he's got to give her, and how little he's got to offer her as a couple and as a person. He's got nothing. They've got nothing, and these people have got everything, and they don't attack these people for having everything. And I think it's Hill just saying, there is a social boundary, but it doesn't have to be a violent one.
Yes. So the Warriors are on the train and are homeward bound. They've been through a lot in one night, but there's one final hurdle to jump.
Certainly is.
So we finally made it. CI, the big corny. It's early morning, and the boys are coming out to play. Here it comes. But before that, they arrive at Corney early morning. And when filming at Corney, Andrew Laszlo looked out under this beautiful sunrise. He wasn't able to get his camera set up in time to capture it. He didn't need the shot for the film, but he thought he could sell it to Paramount for their library.
Nice.
The next morning, on the off chance he had his camera set up again, and he captured the footage. And he did end up using it for the film. It's the shot that is used to transition from night to day. There's like a close-up.
So, cross dissolve, isn't it?
Yes, that's right, yeah. And when we first arrive back, we see the harsh reality kick in. Swan even says, is this what we fought all night to get back to?
Yeah.
It taps into what you've been saying about mercy, what I said earlier as well, coming to realise that there's more to life than having a mattress strapped on your back on a Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
Whether I buy this big romance or not, that they're going to go run away and become this well-travelled couple is another matter, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think Swan's really the romance king of Corney. You said he picked all those flowers. He hates seeing things go to waste. There's no romance to it. He has very little.
Yeah.
But this small scene does give you a shred of redemption for these characters. And this is where you realise that they have nothing and they are just kids and this is their life. It's pretty grotty, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there is a Warriors graffiti sign over an abandoned bathhouse building in Coney Island. It's prominent in promo shots for the film, but unbeknownst to the filmmakers, the tag was painted over the top of a rail gang tag, who, needless to say, were not happy about it, and they had to be paid off to keep them sweet.
Wow. Paying the people off left, right, and centre. Yeah.
No, that's why there's no money in the budget for songs
or retakes or decent actors.
Oh God, he's lost it now.
Matt, you've said your piece.
He's lost it. He's lost it.
Sorry.
So just when we think it's all over, we get this wonderful clanking of bottles, and we get this wonderful, oh, there he is again. And I wanted this to be more weird. I wanted it to be just more intense. When it starts, and he just gets more and more intense with his delivery. Come out to play. Oh, to play. And it's just this, it's horrific. It's like a horror film.
It is.
You know, it's like it's the serial killers like tempting the kids out, and they're not coming out. Then just they know where they are. They're on their ground now, and it's like, you know, it plugs into that song that was said, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. So he takes them to the sand. They've got nowhere to hide anymore. They've got nothing to do. Everyone's out in the open, and it's like, right, it's us against you. Let's see who you really are and how tough you really are. But that whole sequence is such a great ending when they're on their own turf and they stay hidden in their own turf because they know where they can benefit and where they can be pulled in, and they're still not pulled in. Everyone's tempting to pull them in. And I think that taps into the ending of why they're the best, is because they have a resolve and they don't be triggered by other people. And I think that's the whole point of Luther here, is he is in a scene that he thinks he's the strongest. He thinks he's the strongest anyway. And it's just this performance by Kelly. I think it's just so good. And that clinking of the bottles, once you hear it, you will never ever forget that.
So
you know,
weird.
it's always there. And I've just seen a meme because I've obviously been looking at this, and then it comes up on your social media, things that you've been looking at because of the algorithm. And there's a class meme that just came up and just says, "You can't hear a picture," and it's just Kelly holding them bottles, just looking through the window. It's like, yeah, I can hear that picture. I know exactly what's going on here.
This come out to play scene, it's gone down as the stuff of legend. Hill thought that the scene was a bit dull as it was written. He needed Kelly to do something to coax the Warriors out and asked him to improvise. Kelly disappeared under the boardwalk, came out with 3 bottles doing the come out to play bit. David Patrick Kelly said, "I wanted to make Luther evil." So he was influenced by this really bad guy who I knew in downtown New York who would make fun of me and say, "Dave, Dave." And it was the creepiest thing I ever heard.
Yeah.
Hello, Dave.
Not again. In addition to that story is that Kelly came on set with a bag of dead pigeons. This is what I'm talking about, how I wanted them to be weird. This would have worked for me.
Really
a bag
weird.
of dead pigeons that was going to mess with the Warriors. But Hill thought it was just far too weird.
Yeah.
Not for me. I would have that would have been
Lap
great.
that up.
Yeah. A few sources have confirmed that part of the story, including Joe Weiss, who played Cropsey.
And Weiss actually had a line in the scene, but it ended up being cut. He said, "We're going to get you Warriors tonight," but it was cut because it was daytime.
Fucking hell. Genius.
Classic improvisation. Get it right. Love it. Tonight. Shit, it's today.
And then you get to the ending, the confrontation with Luther, and, he's defeated in a fairly underwhelming manner, I would say. He's been given it all the really big bollocks, clanking the bottles together, and then just the knife in the arm, the most ridiculous scream ever.
In slow-mo,
and slow-mo, and just whimpering, wasn't me. It was the Warriors.
No.
Just
horrific.
I don't understand how, anyone thought that was going to be a really fulfilling end to this character. But then you get the riffs turning up.
Riffs! Yeah!
You Warriors are good. Real good. The best.
Yeah, 150 riffs just turning up out of fucking nowhere. I
At
love
6
that.
a.m.
Exactly.
It's 6
Finally
a.m.,
get to see an army of them.
I love it.
I do think, though, the best, well, give your head a bit of a shake.
Not really the best, are you?
Yeah,
The best. Cyrus is thinking, well, I'll give you a pass on that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You sort out the punks, fair enough, but, your leader was still called Swan. But the end credits, I always love end credits that roll over the action as it's still going on. I do like the song, but I think they're just missing an absolute trick with, right at the very end. I think Ajax should have still been chained to that park bench, and then they cut back to him the end of Airplane. The guy who's still in the taxi right after the end credits.
Great.
I'll give him another 20 minutes and that's it.
It is a little underwhelming. I think the resolution is a little bit messy. I don't think the editing's up to too much, and the dialogue's not great either.
But apart from that, it's great.
Yeah. Apart from that, love it.
It is a great way to end the film, when the rogues show up, but it's after that, it's fairly underwhelming, this whole sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is,
It to be a big fight. Yeah.
Hill said that he didn't want the film to end with a big bloodbath. He said he wanted to see the bad guys punished, but he didn't want a melee. What he was looking for was a quiet resolution that didn't overly agitate the audience as they left theatres.
Yeah.
Right.
More on that later.
In the credits, we see the Warriors and Mercy walk the beach and get smaller and smaller in the frame. They were told just to stay in character and keep walking. They turned around when they got the end of the beach and they made their way back to the crew, who had prepared a bunch of red roses as a thank you to Deborah Van Goldberg.
That's lovely. Wonderful
There's some
gesture.
red roses for you. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice.
Sorry for breaking your wrist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the scar on you. That'll heal.
Yeah,
That'll
smack me
heal.
in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are for you. No, use your other hand.
So the Warriors have the comfort of Coney Island to protect them. They're good. Real good.
The best.
Well, I think that's a bit of a
Maybe.
stretch.
Reception and awards.
There were a number of gang movies in production at the time, and Paramount insisted that The Warriors was out first. In order to do that, they brought on 3 editors to cut the film.
When it was released on Friday 9th of February, the New York Times ran an article headlined 6 films open with a galaxy of stars. And those 6 films were Murder by Decree, Hardcore, In Praise of Older Women, Agatha, Quintet, and When You're Coming Back, Red Rider.
Yes, The Warriors nowhere to be seen on that list.
Yeah.
But it beat out every single one to make it to the top of the box office that weekend. Because of the push and pull between Hill and the studio, there was a certain amount of friction between the two. Hill said, after the movie came out and it did well, everyone was sort of friends. But up until then, there was a lot of misunderstanding. They thought it was going to be like Saturday Night Fever or something.
Yeah, right.
Right, yeah.
So it started off well, but then tragedy struck when a gang member was killed by another gang in Palm Springs on the 12th of February. That same night, 170 miles away in Oxnard, another gang member was stabbed and killed.
There was another fatality a few days later outside a movie theatre, and Paramount decided to pull the trailer and allowed movie theatre chains to not show the film if they didn't want to. They also offered to pay for extra security to those cinemas that decided to show the film.
What also didn't help the film was the commentary on the trailer and the poster, which read, "These are the armies of the night. They're 100,000 strong. They outnumber the cops 5-1. They could run New York City." I think these facts and figures just put the willies up people, considering the real world parallels.
Yeah, definitely.
Walter Hill has a theory on why there was an unusual amount of violence at showings of the film. He said, the movie was very popular with street gangs, especially young men, a lot of whom had very strong feelings about each other. And suddenly they were all in the movies together. They looked across the aisle and there were the guys that they didn't like, so there were a lot of incidents. Kind of checks out.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So not an ideal release for The Warriors, which also met with derision in most critical reviews. Desmond Ryan, writing in the Philadelphia Inquirer, was disgusted by the film. He said it was a sickening film that glorifies gang warfare and brutal violence. It has left a bloody trail of real-life mayhem and death in its wake.
Yeah.
Gene Siskel gave it 1 out of 4, saying, "You would think after watching The Warriors that gang membership was a victimless crime, save for the occasional sadist who pops up as comic relief. This entire film is a romantic lie."
Okay.
Wow.
But it is a film. It's not a documentary, Gene.
Exactly, yeah.
Come on. And Roger Ebert. What do you think Big Rog gave it out of 4?
I'm going to say 2.
I'll say 2 as well.
2. Slap bang in the middle and you're both right. He said, no matter what impression the ads give, this isn't even remotely intended as an action film. It's a set piece. It's a ballet of stylized male violence. Only 3 or 4 of the movie characters look and sound like plausible street gang members. The rest look and sound like male models.
Yeah.
However, Pauline Kael did absolutely love the film. She said, with Walter Hill's The Warriors, movies are back to their socially conscious role of expressing the anger of the dispossessed. The Warriors is a real movie maker's movie.
Okay.
And further praise came from the unlikely source of Ronald Reagan, the actor, and President of the United States at the time. He'd screened it at Camp David and called Michael Beck to tell him that he enjoyed it immensely.
Amazing.
So not entirely bad news from a critical point of view, and audiences did come back around. And on a $4 million budget, The Warriors returned a solid $22.4 million at the box office. Not too shabby. And now it has an impressive, and to some people, an unbelievable 88% on Rotten Tomatoes and a score of 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb.
All right.
Okay.
Get those numbers up for me. Rookie numbers.
Rookie numbers.
So no awards to speak of, obviously. It was probably too much of a stretch to get a Best Supporting nod for David Patrick Kelly.
Not for me.
Nothing at the Razzies, or did they not exist back then?
They didn't exist, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Would have swept that, I imagine.
But from a shaky start, The Warriors ended up doing very nicely at the box office with a few prominent supporters in its corner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sequels and influence.
Despite many attempts, there hasn't been any sequels or remakes to The Warriors on the big screen or the little screen. Going back to 2005, Tony Scott was attached to direct and even spoke in detail about it in an interview with MTV. It was set in LA because it was more horizontal city than New York. That's what Scott said. He said it suited the material better. His filmmaking is in the same family as Walter Hill, so I think that would have been a bloody good match.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Scott even sat down with LA gang members who assured him that there would be this treaty between all the gangs if he could pull the film off. Gangs like the Savage Huns and the Electric Eliminators were to be dropped in favour of real gangs.
Yeah, Scott said it'll be the Bloods, the Crips, the Vietnamese, the 18th Street Gang, all the boys. It'll be all the major gangs in Los Angeles, and we're going to try to get them to stand on the Long Beach Bridge.
All the boys, all the guys.
All the fellas.
Unfortunately, tragically, Scott took his own life in 2012, and we weren't given the Warriors remake that we were promised. In 2015, Crank director Mark Neville-Dean said that he was looking to resurrect the Warriors with co-directing partner Brian Taylor. Thankfully, there have been no further reports, and it looks like we've swerved that particular bullet. Thankfully.
Fair one.
Since then, a TV adaptation was rumoured to be in the works with Anthony and Joe Russo teaming up with Hulu and Paramount. That has also failed to materialise, but there is a curious entry in IMDb, a 5-minute trailer from 2022 showcasing what looks like a pilot episode, a prequel to The Warriors. And it looks like it's already been shot, but if that's the case, it's fallen by the wayside because 2 years on, we've got nothing.
Well,
Right.
Check it out. Check it out, though. Despite no sequel, in September 2015, unannounced cast members from The Warriors dusted off their old colours and hit the subway to go down Coney to recreate their last subway ride home. It was during this get-together that Michael Beck first learned that he broke 3 ribs from the stuntman playing one of the Baseball Furies.
yeah.
Outside of movies and TV, in 2005, there was a much-celebrated video game by Rockstar Games. It charts the events leading up to the Conclave, where you assume the position of many of the iconic characters in the gang. In 2009, a line of comic books were released, one which captures the events of the film and one which told the story of what happens afterwards.
Okay.
And complicated stuff. In August 2023, Lin-Manuel Miranda allegedly has started work on a stage musical adapted from the Uric novel. So,
Right.
a lot of things
Right.
to get your teeth into, nothing materialised as of yet. So what of the Warriors' legacy and influence, Westy, in the years since its release? Where do you see it splashed all over Tinseltown?
I kind of see it splashed all over even now. I think the main thing that I got from it was the Carpenter influence and how he went darker with, especially with Escape New York, which was 3 years later. And then more recently, you can't really finish this podcast without talking about John Wick 4, which I think is
Agreed.
just an absolute rip-off of the Warriors. It takes the whole thing and just makes the Warriors one person. And again, a massive influence was just a little bit more subtle when you've got the likes of Tarantino using that close-up on Pulp Fiction, which is kind of, reflects the DJ, but it's Uma Thurman's, it's framed exactly the same, and it's got that kind of look to it. So I think it's the electricity that was brought into this that by Walter Hill, that he basically put the plug into the socket and everyone else has carried that electricity a little bit further.
Very nice. Yeah, I agree with you. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, very similar. I don't think the film in itself has a legacy, but I think it's a film that has moments that have a legacy. I'll just repeat what Westy said, the shot of the DJ speaking into the mic. Tarantino's taken that, Spike Lee's taken that.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, Edgar Wright's taken the toilet fight.
Yeah.
So I don't think any director has gone, I'm going to make a film just like The Warriors. But I think a few have gone, I'm going to make a film which has a bit like that bit from The Warriors.
Yeah.
I think for me, even though Hill wasn't allowed to make the film like a comic book on initial release, its influences can, I think, be seen in adapted from graphic novel movie adaptations. I think you can see it in the likes of Sin City, that darkly violent look at society, but with its tongue firmly in cheek.
Yeah.
Also, spanning the wider popular culture plane, I think you can see its influences on the narrative structure of like side-scrolling video games like Streets of Rage.
Yeah,
definitely.
The music of Twisted Sister, the Wu-Tang Clan, Pop Elite itself, Ice Cube have been influenced by the Warriors.
There's so many samples.
Yeah.
There's loads. There's a Spanish metal band called the Lizzies.
Right. Big fan.
Yeah, big fan, obviously.
Yeah, got them all on vinyl.
And based on the unfortunate events that followed the film's release in 2009, Entertainment Weekly even ranked The Warriors number 14 of the 25 most controversial films in cinema history.
Right.
Ahead of the likes of Kids and Caligula.
Yeah. It's one of them films that feels a lot more violent than it actually is.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So from humble beginnings and an expected legacy encompassing popular culture at large, that'll no doubt continue to grow when we finally do get that inevitable sequel, prequel, or remake.
Yeah.
All the right movies ranking.
We've made it back to Coney, a turn on the Wonder Wheel to celebrate our homecoming, no doubt. But first, the iconic ATRM ranking. Westy, tear the band-aid off. Summary and score for the Warriors.
Okay, I'll just come back to what I said at the start. It's a new one for me, and I wish I had seen this younger because I think it would have resonated a lot more, because the energy from the film, I've watched it a number of times over the last couple of weeks, has stayed with us. And just that, the visuals and just the feel of it, just the colour of the vests, just the way just the energy and the pace of how it's shot, to me, really makes sense. But it is ultimately that feeling I would get from a computer game that I played when I was younger. And like, I wish this was like a film that I could get into and have themes and understand something from it. There's loads of cool bits in it.
Yes.
And that's absolutely fine. Does that make it a great film? Not for me personally. Is it one that I'm going to come back to again and again? Not for me personally. Is it one that I'm going to suggest to people to watch? Absolutely, because I think it is one of them films in the history of cinema that is very, very important. So it has to have that score because it resonates with a lot of people. And I'm not going to give it a bad score because I didn't hit it at the right time, because I hit it now at 43 years old and it still made sense. So I'm not going to smash it down because of the bad dialogue or the bad acting. I'm going to say this was an achievement and a really well-made achievement. So I'm going to give it a very solid 8 out of 10.
Very nice. Are you hearing this, Matt? You listening to it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Taking it in.
Taking it in. Drink it
Taking
in.
it in. Taking it in.
Lovely. Well, here are my thoughts.
Okay.
Well, actually, I've made my feelings clear throughout the show, I think.
Yes, you have. Don't stop wasting people's time.
10. No, I do have an unbridled love for the world that Walter Hill has created. And I'd say that I'm marginally obsessed with the film and the world. I really am. But I'm not completely blinkered by it. The performances are poor, generally. The dialogue, crude in parts. And the narrative, very simple all the time. So a lot of negatives, which I think is echoed by you two fellas. However, my score will certainly not reflect yours, Matt. I'm trying as hard as possible to be objective about the film, but it is a struggle. So I'm going to give The Warriors a 9 out of 10. 10 would have been my preferred, but I'm well aware that would have just been an outrage.
Whatever you think personally is not an outrage. It's what you think personally. Don't worry about it.
No. 10 is an outrage for this film.
Well, I mean, for you especially to give this a 10, yeah, that's fair enough.
It's such a difficult film to rate because it's undeniable how distinctive it is. It's weird, it's tonally all over the place, but it's distinctive all the same. And the three elements that jump out the most, the soundtrack, the cinematography, the costume design, are magnificent. Mm-hmm. But by any other metric that I would rate any film by, it is found wanting. The acting is subpar, to say the least. Yeah. Characters are pretty forgettable. Dialogue isn't up to that much, which comes down to the writing. And Hill's work bounces between being really great at times, and at times I'm just thinking, what's going on here? What's this scene about? What? And ultimately for me, this film feels like if you bump into a mate and he says, I've got to tell you this great story, what happened to me last Friday night. And he tells the story, but along the way, it just doesn't click. And he realizes you're not getting the story. And he gets to the end, he goes, well, I guess you had to be there. And I think you had to be there with the Warriors, and I wasn't. I was on a different train altogether, going the complete opposite direction. Oh. So the start of this episode, I was quite confused. By the end, I think I'm probably even more confused, but it is distinctive. So it's a 7 from me.
7. Okay, it's a sliding scale from us guys, which I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Don't get that often.
No.
Yeah.
Our fourth and final score for the Warriors comes from our huge army of supporters on X, formerly Twitter. A fan favourite for sure, something that was confirmed when the Warriors beat Chinatown on the X poll for this particular episode, and uproar ensued.
Yes, it did.
So no doubt there'll be some lively comments, and I've picked out some of the best and worst before we reveal the big score. So Andy at This Is Andy Dev said, one of my go-to films. I know it's not a classic like Goodfellas, Godfather and Jaws, but seeing it as a kid was boss. I believe Andy is from Liverpool.
Very much.
Man of War 666 at Man of War 666 said, cracking film, but it's an 8. You lads throw around 9s and 10s far too liberally, to be honest.
Well, I'll give it an 8, so...
Yeah, I'll give it a 7, so...
I think he's talking about me.
Yeah.
KP Black Taxi at KP Black Taxi said, The Warriors is the ultimate dystopian film with so many memorable characters and references. There's a lot of social commentary hidden in the film, and it's one of my favourite films of all time. Right up there, 10, 10, 10.
There you go.
Should have had that guy on. Bump the score up.
Yeah.
Sugar Spun Mister at Kanan Taba 101 said, it's one of those movies, it's so bad it's good. Unbelievable plot, 2 out of 10 acting, hilarious wardrobe, but somehow compelling. What we've been saying for the last 3-4 hours, I would say.
Yeah. Matt, what's your X handle? Is that it?
Yeah, that was me.
That was you, yeah.
Andy Ronan at ND Ronan 1401 said 3. Overrated as fuck.
Should have got him on.
Okay.
So it's a mixed bag when it comes to the X comments. What do you think it averaged out of 10, fellas?
I have no idea how this would go.
Ooh.
7.5.
7.5, Westy?
8. Yeah. I'm going to go 8.
8. You're absolutely right, Westy. Not really surprising. 8 out of 10. I think that's a fair score.
Okay.
Yeah.
There may be a lot of love for the film, but some realistic scores to go with it. Honesty.
Realistic love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with all the scores combined, the Warriors came out with a score of 32 out of 40.
Okay.
Not too bad.
Okay.
We are taking a break from the classic podcast for around about a month. Don't get too upset. We've hit that magical 100 episodes, and we thought it was time that we take a little breather so we don't burn out.
Yeah.
But don't think that we're laying low in that time. You can't get rid of us.
Oh, no.
Instead of a new classic show for the next 2 episodes, we'll be pulling shows out of our archive for a limited time, or we'll be doing a highlights reel or a combination of 2. So keep your eyes open for those.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll still be active for our patrons. The next episode of Double Feature will be live next Friday. We've got the Old Bacon Sandwich, Tremors, and Mystic River, 2 of the best from Kevin Bacon. Your picks, Westy. Excited?
Yeah, I am excited. I should have put Footloose in there instead of Mystic River. I watched it last night and I'm still not over it.
Grim as arseholes.
It is grim as arseholes. I'm sorry about that.
And a couple of weeks after that, we'll see the inaugural episode of The Watch List. As mentioned at the top, that's our brand new podcast. That's only for our supporters on Patreon. So go to patreon.com/alltherightmovies.
Some good films coming up on that as well.
Absolutely. So we're not going away completely, and we won't be away for long. We'll be back on October 4th. John, Matt and Westy will have no problems when they bring you the behind-the-scenes story of Apollo 13.
None at all.
Go stir the tanks.
Lovely. And if that wasn't enough, every 2 weeks alternate to this show, we've launched a new podcast called Surreal. It's a bite-sized episode. You might have seen the first episode last week where we released a conversation about the opening scene from An American Werewolf in London that we talked about, the three of us here, a few years ago.
Yeah, still a favourite.
Yeah, oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's just a snippet of that conversation, so don't forget to listen to that. And if you like what you hear, listen to everything on Showreel in our archive by becoming a patron.
You certainly can.
Yes.
So 4
Yes,
active podcasts, 2 on general release, 2 for our patron supporters, 6 per month. Can't ask for more than that.
Absolutely not.
How do we do all that?
We know it's worth it.
Oh,
Oh,
it
it's
absolutely
totally worth
works. Yeah, it's beautiful stuff.
We may not always talk about 5-star films as exemplified on this show, but if you think this is a 5-star podcast, please take a minute of your time to rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, and any other streaming platform that you use, please. We love 5 stars, and we're sure you do as well, so 5 all the way would be great.
It would be
Yes,
great.
please.
We could definitely dig that.
And we're active on social media every day. On X/Twitter, we are at AT Right Movies. We post all day, every day. Our making of movie threads are a thing of beauty. They go up almost every day. Fascinating stories behind the biggest films. All the behind the scenes info that we use come from one of the cast and crew or is verified by at least 3 sources, just like our podcast. So go check them out if you don't already.
Defo.
On Instagram and Threads, we're at @all_the_right movies. On TikTok, search @all_the_right movies. Join our Facebook group, which is full of great movie chat by great people.
It certainly is.
On Blue Sky, we are @alltherightmovies.com. We're also on YouTube as well. Watch our videos if you love to see our faces. If you subscribe, like, and comment on our videos, that would be first class. YouTube.com/alltherightmovies.
You can't get away from it really once you're
No,
involved.
we're everywhere.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, just like the street gangs of New York. Can't get rid of us.
That's it. That's your last fucking reference to this film on any podcast.
I don't think it is, Westy. I've got a couple more coming. Just hold your horses.
God damn it.
And our website is alltherightmovies.com. Just like Masai says, we're good. Real good.
Real good. All right.
And that is a wrap, everyone. We're going out on the streets to see if we can find ourselves some strange wool. We'll be back in October after our little break, and there'll be loads to keep you occupied in the meantime. Stay loose, everyone.
Thank you for listening, guys.
Thanks.